All right, so we'll see. So I'll leave that up to you if you would like to do that to get a little more hands-on experience, and just grab the chair and come on over. Oh, we do have people at home. Hey, wave if you can hear me. Okay, so, and I can't see the names from here. Hold on. Let me see. I got to get closer because, you know, I'm getting older. Catherine, Jennifer, Jacqueline, Anthony, and Leah. All right, okay, good. So with this class, if I ask you, if you have questions, just unmute yourself because the chat is so tiny up in the corner, I can't see it from sitting here. Okay, so if I say, hey, have you got any questions, go ahead and unmute yourself, start talking, okay? All right, so for today, LaToya is the only actual person here in person. So I'm just gonna have her pretend to be my buyer. So then that way she's getting first experience right here. Now, Gabby is supposed to put into chat the documents that we're using for class. So do you guys see that yet? No, not yet? Okay, well, hopefully Gabby will put that. Do you guys have a contract in front of you? Okay. Because you will need a contract, and that's going to be put into chat as well. And the other attachments and documents that. Did anyone have a chance to go to the house? Just shake your head no if you didn't. Oh, you did go, Catherine? Unmute yourself for a sec. Okay.
I looked at it on MLS and tried to do some comp stuff for it. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I just wondered if anyone had a chance to go in person to see it. I tried to go and the MLS lockbox was missing. They'd already put it on a combo box because it's closing this week. So I didn't even get to go inside. So
I just found
purposes,
this afternoon.
For the purposes of today's class, we are going to pretend that we all went inside of it and it is in average condition and not being sold as is. MLS says that it's being sold as is. We're going to pretend that doesn't exist for this class because I want you to have the experience of a regular listing out there that's probably in average condition. We don't get too many as is that were in the kind of condition that I saw where, you know, peeling paint, things like that. So for the purposes of this class, it's going to be average condition. Okay. All right. Do you guys see in chat now all the different attachments? So you guys can just have them open on your computer or you can print them out, whatever's easier. The second half of this class. So the first half of the class is I'll go over these documents real quick just so you'll know what you've got in your hand. Then I'm going to explain the contract to a buyer. LaToya is my guinea pig today. So I will actually pretend that she's the buyer and we're going to go through fill out the contract. So you won't be able to see what I'm filling out, but I'm going to tell you every step of the way. So if you have to step away to take a phone call or something, you may miss something. So do me a favor. If you come back and you're missing something, just like wave so that I can see you and I'll know that we need to stop or something like that so I can catch you back up. Okay. But literally this is going through the contract as if I'm sitting with the buyer and how I'm explaining it to them. So there's not a whole lot of stopping and saying, hey, what's your question? So we'll stop at some certain points. I'll stop and say, do you have any questions? But otherwise, this isn't really a, hey, explain that to me again real quick. This is for the buyer side of it. Write down your questions. And then a lot of times I find that what I'm getting ready to talk about next is actually the question you were going to ask. So just write down your question.
Attachment. They're supposed to be in the chat box?
In the chat box, there's a whole bunch of documents.
I don't see any. Does anybody else?
From here, refresh it or something, because from here I can see there's at least 6.
Yep. I don't see any either.
And what I'll do is we'll start just going over the documents real quick so you'll know. All right, so you should have The MLS sheet, which is just what you would have pulled out of MLS, this is the full agent view so that you can see everything. And the difference is going to be when you're pulling forms to take with you to an appointment, you should have your full agent one so that you have your instructions. Then there's going to be a customer one page. That's the other one you're going to want to print and take with you that you give to the client. You never give them the full agent 2-page because it has agent remarks that are just for you, and it has listing agent information, which you really don't want your buyer calling the listing agent. You know, that should never be happening. So definitely make sure that you're giving them the right customer copy. But what I attached in here is the agent 2-page full view. Okay. Then you should also have the tax record, and it's 3 pages. Okay. You'll see a little picture on that. For this, there's a little bit of information that you're going to need to fill out for page 1. After that, you really won't have too much use for it, but for this class, it'll be for page 1 for the identifiers. You're going to have a lead-based paint form, which this was from MLS. I find that of all the documents out there, this 1-page form has the most tags and issues. Agents just don't know how to fill it out somehow, some way. So we're going to fill it out correctly so that you guys can see what you're supposed to be doing with that one. And I think the property disclosure is in there. Nod your head if that's over there. Yeah. Okay. I don't really go over that one, but I want you to have a copy of it just for reference sake. Now, do you have the comps in there? Is that the other form that you have? Okay. So that is the 2-page form that looks like this. Okay. And we'll go over this towards the end. And I use that to show you how to pull your own comps in the MLS, sort of an add-on at the end of class. You don't have to stay for it, but if you want to learn how I did this in MLS, and that's what I show you. Okay. All right. Are we good to proceed so far? Okay. All right. There's nothing else. Okay. Hi, LaToya. So you are ready to make an offer on 5810 Kenna Drive?
Yes.
Okay. So in South Carolina, we've already filled out the agency disclosure. When we met at the property, we filled that one out. You've already filled out the buyer agency.
Mm-hmm.
And in this case, because my office has this listing and I'm the broker in charge, we also did the dual agency agreement.
Okay.
Okay, because dual agency, when anything is involved with me as the broker in charge, it has to be dual because I have access to documents in the office that other agents wouldn't have access to.
Okay.
Okay, so dual agency was the other form we filled out. Now, before we start on the contract, I want to go over the lead-based paint. There's a federal mandate on this that if we don't fill this out and you understand it first, then we could be fined a whole lot of money. So we'll just go over it quickly. Now, on this form, I'm going to point out to you, they did not put the property address on here. So I'm going to add that. And whenever I send this over to the other agent, I'll let them know that I added it on because the names match up for the seller. So I'm assuming it's the right one, but they just must have missed it. Okay. So we'll just add that on so that any future things that come up, we'll know we have the right one. Okay. All right. So the seller has disclosed on here that they have no knowledge of any lead-based paint problems and that they have no reports as to any lead-based problems. Okay. So they've initialed and checked those 2 boxes. Now in this section, you'll be initialing C only because there are no copies of anything. So you have received nothing of what's listed above. The pamphlet, I've not given you a pamphlet. I can send that to you if you'd like through DocuSign so you have a copy of it. And then the big thing is you're going to have to check one of these boxes. You can either want a 10-day opportunity to receive or to do any inspections that you'd like on this property, okay? Or you can waive it.
Okay.
Usually people that want a 10-day opportunity, it's because they have children that might eat paint chips off the wall that could contain lead-based paint. So it's kind of a personal choice as to whether you'd want that 10-day inspection or if you're just going to waive that.
Yeah, I think we're just gonna waive it.
Okay, waive that. Okay. And then, so what I'll need you to do is initial those 2, and then you will sign here and date there. Okay. Okay, and then I'm signing here that I explained this form to you. Okay, and the listing agent already signed and they initialed that they explained this to the seller. Okay, so we're done with that. Okay. All right, so for the property disclosure, I just want to point out to you what they filled out. The agents do not fill this out, so this is completely on the seller to fill things out. They do have on here that the HVAC system is approximately 30 years old, but is working fine. So in our area, when we go to talk about inspections, we'll go over what we, if you want to do an inspection on that still or not. Most of these, let's see, page 2, most of these items are no, which means that they're saying there are no problems with it. The roof was installed in 2009. Okay, right there. And the house was built in 72, which we already knew. And on this page, they're not saying that they have any infestations or termites or anything like that they're aware of, and that there aren't any problems with flood zones, special designations, anything like that. And again, I send all this over to you to look over again, but I just wanted you to see that all these are no. Now, it says at the very end, Mount Valley has worked on foundation under master bath. More work needed under addition in back of house. It's hard to read his handwriting, sorry. That's on page 4. Page 4, X at the bottom of the property disclosure. Okay, so that just means that we would probably need to find out what that estimate was and what they're looking at for that, okay? But just wanted you to be aware of that on this vacant house. Oh, here we go. Okay, so they included in the property disclosure Mount Valley's foundation report. All right, so it looks like they installed piers on the back of the home, tuck point all cracks, new mortar may not match old, shrubs not guaranteed. That just means that they have to move shrubs in order to get to the foundation, that they don't guarantee that they're going to live afterwards. And this was back in July 2009. And then it was actually performed in 2011. So apparently that's when they did a bunch of this work. Just do pier locations. All right, so for this class, to make it easier, we're going to pretend that none of that exists as far as the foundation stuff, because it is not normal for you guys. I mean, this might happen 1 out of every 50 or 75 homes that you actually would end up writing an offer on. So I don't want us to get bogged down on just that, okay? So just always know that you just kind of look it over with, show them the property disclosure, look it over, see if they have any upfront questions before we move on to the actual contract, okay? So, are you licensed in the state of South Carolina with a real estate license?
Yes.
Okay, so we're gonna check buyer is licensed in South Carolina. All right, we're gonna put today's date, April 20th. We're on the contract now. Okay, and how do you do your legal name?
L-A, capital T, O-Y-A. Matson, M-A-T-S-O-N.
Okay, and are you the only one that's going to be purchasing the property?
Yes.
Okay, now for the sellers, let's look, they've got on the, I go to the tax record now, again for page 1. I look and see that says Kathleen Pappas, and that is also the name that's on the MLS sheet on page 2, so they match up. So I will put on here, according to tax record, Kathleen F. Pappas, and that's what I'm going to put on as the seller. Okay. Now, since we already did the buyer agency agreement, I'm going to check that you are a client of Keller Williams, so you will be initialing there once we get to initial.
Hello.
Okay. Anthony, do you have a question?
Yes, ma'am. On the DocuSign.
Okay, I need you to talk louder. I don't know, this thing isn't as loud as I think it could be.
On the DocuSign app, where do we get the buyer's agency agreements from? Because I don't see it in there. The buyer's agency agreement?
Oh, buyer's agency agreement.
Oh, no, I'm pretending that we already did that.
Okay, I'm just
Okay,
asking
we
where
already
can we
did the
find those
agency
forms?
disclosure. I can see if I can turn up. Anthony, try talking again for me so I can see if it,
Yes, ma'am. I'm just asking, inside the DocuSign, when we can go in there and get the contracts, I don't see the buyer's agency agreement. Where do we find the agreements at so we can have them? I have a
Okay.
situation right now, right, where I have an
Yes.
older couple who are wanting to be clients. I meet today, as a matter of fact, and they're looking at some property, and they're older. They have no computers. They're in their 70s, and they want it printed out because they're just not going to do the regular, everything electronically. So
Yes.
where do I find the agreement? Because I went on the DocuSign and looked at all the documents, and I don't see it.
okay, were you in the library or in the groups?
I was in, I went to the DocuSign app, and it says forms. So I went through the forms and I didn't see it.
Okay, so when you go into DocuSign and are you in a room?
No,
Okay, I know how to do it from being in a room. Have you done any other rooms?
I haven't, not yet. This is my first one.
Okay,
I have 4 potential clients right now that's ready to.
what you probably need
But I'm
to
in
do
Sumter.
a test room, okay? So that you can like play around. And when you start a test room, so you'll be in DocuSign, and you'll do add room or something like that. And I'm
Mhm.
sure that Andrew has a video on this, so I'm just going off the top of my head here. You will open a new room, and then when you go to the add button on the top right, where you can add documents, you say add from DocuSign. And then it will open up a new window and it will say Forms Library, or if you click on the drop down, Group. If you click on Group, then the next checkbox will be residential resale. That's probably what you're going to be doing for most of these. So if you click on that, it shows you the group of forms that would apply to any residential resale. One of those is going to be the buyer agency, the agency disclosure. You're going to see a few different documents in there. And I would say click all those and put them into the room so that you've got copies of them in the room. And then from the room, you can click on the document and hit print to print out the blank document.
Okay. All right. I'll try to, yeah, okay. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so right now we're on section 2, where we're going to put in the property identifiers from the tax record in the MLS sheet. So on the tax record on page 3, we can see in the description it says lot 11 block E. So we'll go to lot 11 block E, and it says Chaladon West for the subdivision. So we'll write that in. Then I have the address in here. The tax map number is right here on page 1 under general parcel information. Okay, so the parcel ID is 002723-06-011. Okay. Basically, that's all the information I take from the tax record at this point. The last thing I'll do is I'll look all the way at the bottom and look at the FEMA flood zone. It says X, it's not in a flood zone, that flood insurance would not be required. I always tell them that, hey, you might want to check with your insurance company just to make sure on that. But this is saying that flood insurance is not required, but it is a third party, whereas your insurance company would be the first party telling you if you can or not. Okay. Now, for the purchase price, we're going to come back to that, okay? Because we're going to go through everything, see what we want to put in the contract, and then decide on what amount we want to offer. All right. Now, for earnest money, this property is $120,000. Typically, earnest money starts at $500 and goes up from there. depending on how earnest you are about buying this house, will kind of help decide how much you want to put down. Now, the earnest money is what holds the house in your name until closing. Then at closing, they take the earnest money and apply it to any money that you're supposed to bring, like your down payment, or anything like that. So you don't lose it. You only lose it if you were to back out for no good reason at all. Okay. So considering earnest money, what do you feel comfortable putting down?
Keep it out 5,000.
I'm going to say that that's too high for one or two reasons. Okay. First of all, that is the amount that you could lose if something really weird happens. And I know you really want this house, but if something were to happen, that's the amount of money you could lose. Second of all, if we had to go to court over anything, that could become 3 times the earnest money. And magistrate's court has a limit at 7,500. So if you were to do that, and let's say the seller did something wrong, and you, like, they just suddenly decide not to sell, and you want to get your earnest money plus the trouble damages that they talk about, you would only be able to ask for 7,500 at magistrate's court. You'd have to go to circuit court to ask for 15,000,
Okay.
and that could tie you up for months or years.
Small.
Yes, so I would recommend something in the neighborhood of 500 to 2,000. I don't think that for $120,000 house we really need that much,
Okay.
but even something like 1,000 is probably good. But if you even want to get 1,500, again, it's to show how earnest you are about buying this house. And in today's market, yes, a higher earnest money could mean something.
Okay.
I just think that 5,000 is a little higher than what we should.
Let's do 1,000.
We're gonna do $1,000. Now, I don't need that check from you today, but what happens is if we do get a ratified contract, I would need that check delivered to the closing attorney within 2 business days.
Okay.
So if they accept our offer tomorrow, then by Friday, you'd have to take the earnest money to the closing attorney. So you're gonna do a check, or you're gonna do a wire? Check it. All right, do a check. And I'm gonna write on here, in the space to the right, I'm gonna put to be delivered within 2 business days of ratification. If I were typing, it would all fit. Okay. So to be delivered within 2 business days of ratification, that's what gives you that little bit of extra time after we get an accepted contract to get that in. Okay. Now, do you have a closing attorney that you're already working with that you like, or would you like some recommendations?
Oh, some recommendations is fine.
Okay, so there are 3 that I often work with in our area. One of them is MGC. They've got 3 locations. They actually have an Irmo location. They have a downtown location and northeast location. Now, Blair Cato has a downtown location and a Lexington location. And then we have Gillis Law Firm, who is located off of Bush River Road behind Cracker Barrel. They're more of a mom and pop. There's just one attorney. You get right off there, park right in front of the door, and you walk right in. They can tend to be anywhere from $25 to $75 less than the other attorneys, just because, again, they're mom and pop. But in the end, it's kind of up to you whether you're looking for convenience, like somewhere that's near work, or somewhere that's near the house, or whether you're just money, conscious and want to get the cheapest one possible.
Okay, and what was the name of the mom and pop again?
Gillis Law Firm.
Gillis Law Firm? Yeah.
Okay, we'll go with Gillis. And he's really good. I mean, I've worked with him for over 20 years. I've worked with David Ross for, 10 years, and Blair Cato for at least 4 to 5 years.
Mhm.
So I've worked with all of them. I would never recommend one that I hadn't worked with and know that they do a good job. The Gillis does tend to be slightly less money out of your pocket. Okay, so they will have what's called an escrow agreement that they will want you and the sellers to sign, just saying that they're holding the earnest money and kind of what the rules are. This contract governs everybody, but when it comes to earnest money, LLR governs us as real estate agents, but it does not govern attorneys holding earnest money. So the Bar Association is what governs them. So they'll have their rules in there. It's basically the same idea though.
Mhm.
They're going to hold your earnest money until closing. If there are any problems along the way and either party decides to terminate, if all parties are in agreement on who gets the earnest money, then we all sign a release, no problems. There's only a problem if one of the parties says, no, I'm not signing that, or no, I don't agree with that person getting the earnest money. That's when we would actually have to possibly go to court, do things like that. That's really when their escrow agreement is going to come in handy. Now, their account that they hold it in may or may not be an interest-bearing account. I don't know, but if it were to gain interest, it would probably be a penny or two, not enough to make a considerable difference or to even hand you a check for that. You know, they'll probably just take a penny out of your pocket and give it to you. So just know that. Again, like I mentioned earlier, if this were to go to court, whoever loses in front of the judge would actually have to pay treble damages, which is 3 times the earnest money, plus pay for any attorney fees and escrow holder fees. So that amount could become quite big very quickly. So we do try and make sure that everyone can come to terms on the release so that we're not having to go that route. Okay. Now for this page, I'm going to need you to sign in 2 spots up here and down at the bottom, or initial. Yes.
Is it on this one?
You're the buyer. Doesn't matter. Either one. That's if there's a second buyer. Okay. All right. So page 2. Are we all good on page 1? Okay. I don't see anybody waving at me. Remember, wave. Okay. All right. So on page 2, we've got closing costs. A year or 2 ago, I would say, hey, are we going to ask for closing costs? These days, with the market the way it is, you're going to have to decide whether you can pay closing costs on your own or whether you want to ask the seller to pay for any closing costs on your behalf. Now, out of your pocket right now, you've got your down payment, okay? So the lender told you that you're doing what, an FHA loan?
Yes.
Okay, so you have a 3.5% down payment out of your pocket coming out. So I don't know what your bank account looks like. So if you have $10,000, great. If you don't, then we need to kind of work on some things here, okay? So closing costs, typically when you talk to a lender, usually FHA, you can ask for at least 3% in closing costs. So that's roughly going to be what, $3,600, 3%, something like that. All right. So do you have $3,000 to $4,000 of your own money outside of the down payment to put towards closing costs, or are we going to need to ask the seller to pay for some closing costs on your behalf?
I can pay the closing costs.
You can pay the closing costs. Okay. And that also includes your prepaids. Prepaids are items that you cannot finance in. So if we were to say on this one, A says that you're paying for your own closing costs and the seller's paying for their own. Okay. B would have said that the seller's paying for X amount on your behalf. Prepaids can be paid out of that and not come out of your pocket. But when you do A, which is that you're paying your own, you would have to pay those. Prepaids are going to be your taxes and insurance. So when we close, the seller pays January 1st through the closing date out of their pocket to you for their part of the taxes based on 2020 taxes. At the end of the year, when the tax bill comes out, you're responsible for the whole amount. Okay. So because you're going to be living in the property, you're going to be at a 4% tax rate, and the person living there now is at a 4% tax rate. So it will be even Steven as far as that goes. But when the tax bill comes out, it could be higher, it could be lower. Our contract says that all prorations are final. Okay. But so let's say that, let's see what they have. Okay. So, the taxes on here for 2019 say $255.11. So I am guessing that they probably have, yeah, they have homestead exemption. Okay, so that does change our story a little bit because it's not going to be 4% to 4%. Okay, they're going to give you their prorations based on their homestead amount.
Okay.
At the end of the year, you're going to be at 4%. You're going to go down and say, hey, I'm living in this property, but if you're not over 65 or have a disability, then you're going to have to pay the 4%. So they may be giving you $100, $125 at closing, and then you may owe $800 at the end of the year. So just understand that that's going to be something that's going to be coming down the line. Okay, so that is a future expense you need to understand. You're not going to be able to go back to that seller and say, hey, you owe me money, because it's based off of last year's taxes, which were taxes for homestead. Okay. So you've got your prepaid taxes and you have your prepaid insurance.
Okay.
Now, so which insurance company do you normally use? Who do you have for your car? Geico. Okay, so with Geico, you're gonna call them up, you're gonna say, hey, I need insurance on this house, right? They're gonna say, okay, well, these are the different limits, liabilities, you decide on something, you agree, and let's say they say, okay, that's gonna be $900 a year for this house, okay? At closing, you have to pay the full $900 for the whole year so that you're covered immediately from closing under insurance. So if lightning went and hit the house that night after closing, you're covered, okay? Then what's gonna happen, you're paying the $900 up front. Each month, they're gonna take $75 out of the payment and they're going to put it into escrow so that next year, when the bill comes up, they'll already have the money to pay and it's not coming out of your pocket again. Now, here's the kicker, okay? Since we're gonna be trying to close by the end of May, our first payment is July 1st and it covers June. But we're closing end of May. So we're gonna have 2 payments in there that aren't paid.
Okay.
So up front, the insurance company is probably gonna ask you for 2 or 3 months ahead of time to jumpstart your escrow account because they're gonna send you the bill ahead of the annual closing date, not on the closing date. So they're gonna send it to you, like, let's say next March, and they're gonna want you to pay it before it expires at the end of May when our closing date would have been. Okay, so on that 1 year mark, you need to have paid it ahead of time.
Okay.
It will be paid out of your escrow account by the bank, but you'll have to put a couple months extra in up front so that the whole year is in there by the time it comes due. Does that make sense a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay. So taxes are kind of the same way. They're gonna put money into the escrow account out of your monthly payment. Okay. So that being said, we're now probably looking closer to $5,000 for your total closing costs because you're gonna have to add in for taxes and insurance, okay? On top of the lender's closing costs,
Okay.
okay? Are you still comfortable with that?
No.
Again, we're looking probably closer to about $9,000 at this point.
No.
So where are we at on how much you would possibly need to ask for the seller to assist with? I mean, do you have 7,000, 8,000? Where do you think you land?
Around 6,000.
6,000?
Yeah.
Okay, so what we can do is we can go with 5B and ask the seller to pay for, say, $3,000 on your behalf.
Okay.
Pretty sure all of that will be used, okay? It is something that they will take into consideration when they're saying, oh, how much you giving me? Oh, now I'm giving you $3,000 back. But if you need it, you need it. And if it's the only way to close the loan, then that's what we have to offer, okay? So we're gonna write in, on B, we're gonna write in $3,000. And I write it all the way to the left in case there's any negotiations going on. And we have to scratch through and make initials and that sort of thing. Okay, so as I go along, I date the spot so that then when we glance at the end of the page, when they glance back, the buyer can see exactly where they need to initial. Okay, financing. So this offer is contingent on you obtaining financing, correct? Okay, so the big thing that you need to know on this is that our financing contingency goes all the way almost to closing. So if something were to happen and the lender goes, okay, on day 18, we can't do this loan. It turns out blah, 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 blah. Something happened. Maybe the debt to income ratio is off, just whatever reason they're saying we can't do this loan now. Not because you just went out and bought a car or because you opened credit cards or anything like that, because we're not going to do that. Okay, but they can't do the loan now, all right? So based on that, we would send a release agreement over to the seller, expecting them to sign it. Now, the only time that would not apply is if it's within 5 business days of closing.
Okay.
So whatever closing date we put on page 3, we go back 5 days and we know that is our deadline. If we do not have an okay approval from the lender by then we could be risking your earnest money.
Okay.
Okay. So that being said, that's right there. I checked off FHA. Now, if we decide to change financing types, which you don't qualify for VA, right? Okay, so conventional would be the only other option. Sorry, I'm talking too much. If we were to try and change financing type, we would have to let the seller know in writing and they would have to agree to it. If they say, no, we're not willing to let the finance type change, then they could send us back a release agreement. So it is pretty important for us to know what type of financing we are approved for ahead of time. Okay. This note right here, the lender will be sending us an FHA addendum that will have to be signed by both parties. It's basically saying that whatever price we put on page 1 and is agreed to, that the appraisal has to come out of that price, if that's all that you can get a loan for. You can't get a loan for more than what the appraisal value is. Okay. Now, you have 5 business days to make loan application. Okay, so once we have a ratified contract, you have 5 business days. Now, you've already talked to the lender and gotten pre-approved, but what this is saying is that you have to make formal loan application. And what that includes is you actually signing some documents called a loan disclosure. They're going to tell you all the costs involved at that purchase price so that you can go, oh, yes, I agree. That payment is good. Those numbers are good. We're good to go. Okay, so you have to be able to do that for it to be a loan application. All right. And let's see. Oh, yeah, that's right. Right here, do not go out and buy a car. Don't open any credit cards. Don't buy any furniture. This right here just lets us, number 4 gives us permission to talk to the lender and say, hey, how's it going? Has the appraisal been ordered yet? Has the appraisal come in yet? Are we meeting our target deadlines? That sort of thing. Okay. Do you have any questions about that page?
No.
Okay, I've got 3 spots for you to initial. Do you guys have any questions at home about the financing portion? It's a lot to take in, but once you have that script down, then your buyers will feel way more comfortable with you and feel like you know what you're doing, even if it's your first transaction. So
Could you just,
It's-
would you mind just reiterating as far as the insurance up front, like, how are you kind of guesstimating what the cost is going to be as far as like either having to prepay or whatever?
normally what I will have done already is I will have talked to the lender and said, hey, based on what she qualifies for, let's say it is 120, 125, what do you anticipate taxes and insurance being? Like, we can look up the taxes ourselves on the tax estimator.
Right.
So we can plug that in on the Lexington County website and see at 120 what our taxes would be based on last year's taxes. So that one's the easy part. The insurance, that's kind of going with the lender's gut instinct on what they've closed before. And they may ask some questions like, how old is the house? Because insurance does fluctuate based on the age of the house and on the credit score of the buyer. Since I don't know LaToya's credit score and I didn't ask for that, then the lender would be the best one to say, hey, it's probably going to be around X amount. I just estimated because the house is in a lower price range, so I figured it's probably going to be around 900. Once you get over 150 or so, then it's going to get closer to $1,100, $1,200 a year. So I just sort of spitballed it. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so on page 3, we are not doing seller financing and we're not paying cash, so we'll just skip those. Now, the appraisal contingency, we did touch on that, but we are going to check that it is contingent on appraisal. Because with an FHA loan and you not having the money to like bridge a distance, we do need it to be based off of that. Some buyers out there are actually not checking off appraisal contingency because they may have cash in hand to pay the difference between whatever it appraises at and the purchase price. But not everybody is like that. Most people are not like that. Most people are going to be checking appraisal contingency, especially in this price range. So what this is saying is the appraisal has to come out of the purchase price. If it doesn't, the lender's going to let us know. We have 3 business days to get with the other agent, the seller, and say, hey, how can we work this out? So 3 days to negotiate. It is not a one-way street. It's not, hey, the seller has to come down in price. It is negotiable. So they may say, hey, if we pay $1,500 in closing costs, then we will come down in price. So there could be some give and take. Okay. So that's just what I wanted to let you know. But if in the end, if we can't get it to work, we can back out and we get our earnest money back. Okay. Now, number 7 So we are going to put the deed in your name. Was there anyone else that you wanted to add to the deed?
No.
And then you didn't use the middle initial, okay. So Latoya Matson. All right. And as far as closing, typically FHA takes, 30, 45 days. So if we're going to look at a calendar and we're on April 20th, I know that they probably don't want to have to make a June payment. So if the closer we close to the end of the month, the less money out of your pocket, okay? Because remember how we talked about how if we close July 1st, that covers June?
Mhm.
Well, if we were to close, say, May 24th, there would still be 7 days left in the month that aren't accounted for because that's May. July is paying for June. So you're going to have to pay interest only for whatever days in the month that are left from closing.
Okay.
So it's not a lot, but it's a little bit. So if we were to close, say, closer to the 28th, now the reason why I'm not saying the 31st, that's Memorial Day. Banks will not be open to do wiring. So we need to close probably 26, 27, 28. Also, if there is a problem, we might want to have a day to try and resolve the problem. Otherwise, if we put the 28th and it doesn't close, then it's going to bump us to June. Your first payment would not be due until August 1st. That would cover July. Then you'll have a whole lot of interim interest to pay for June. Okay, so I'm going to recommend the 26th or 27th, just to give us that little buffer.
Yeah. Well, 26 should be good.
26th, okay. All right, May 26th. Okay, so right here under A, it says, when do we want to have the house, vacant and given to us? We're going to check at closing because we shouldn't want to let them live there any longer than that, because if they mess things up, then that's on us. So we'll kick them to the curb on closing date. All right, now on the rare occasion that we get close to closing and we don't have the closing disclosure issued yet, remember how I talked about the loan disclosure up front? That will show you all your costs involved and you have to sign that. The closing disclosure has to be given to you at least 3 business days prior to closing. So let's say we get to the 24th and it hasn't been issued yet, and we know that we have to have 3 business days. Well, right now we already know that we're going to be late. This contingency here only applies if all conditions are cleared and they're like, everything's clear, we're good to go, but we couldn't get the closing disclosure out to today, so now it's going to be the 27th and 28th before we can close. Well, B kind of bridges that distance, but typically a lender's still going to want an extension agreement, but this will cover something, and it says without additional conditions. So as long as there are no conditional things that the lender's saying it has to still be fulfilled, then we would be able to use B. That's the only time, okay? And sometimes it can apply, like let's say there's a death in the family that week and one party to the closing, whether it's the attorney, the seller, you can't go to closing on that day and it needs to be extended, but all conditions have been met, then this might apply in that case. But there's very few times that this would actually apply, okay? Usually we have to do an extension agreement. All right, so number 8, you're allowed to do any and all inspections that you'd like to do at your own cost. I know that might sound familiar because we just went over the inspection disclaimer before we did this, where it has the list of all the different types of inspections that you could look at and say, oh yeah, let's pick and choose these. It's not an all-inclusive list, but it does have the majority of the ones that might be found for houses, lots, things like that. But what this is saying is you can do an inspection, any kind that you want, several, many. You can also do re-inspections where you have that professional come back and make sure that whatever repairs the seller made was done correctly. Okay. And you can also do a final walkthrough. This paragraph tells the seller you need to give us reasonable access. Okay. And since this house is vacant, that helps. So we're not having to worry too much about, getting access and having someone kicked out while we're there. But it does tell them also that they have to have utilities on until closing for us to be able to do these inspections. Okay. Now, number 9 is the actual, how do we go about doing our due diligence period? Okay. So now for this page though, real quick, I need you to initial these 2 spots. Okay. And then we'll go into the due diligence So on page 4, we have due diligence period. Now, from the time we have ratification, you already know that you have to deliver earnest money within 2 business days. You already know that you have to, within 5 business days, make formal loan application. Well, this is 10 business days, okay? So you have 10 business days from the time the contract's ratified to do any and all inspections you'd like to do. During that time, if you decide, you have 3 choices, basically. You can decide, hey, I'm taking the house, I'm good to go. I don't need to ask for repairs, if they're minor, whatever the case may be. Or number 2, okay, you can say, I don't want to buy this house anymore. Now that I've seen it and got the inspection reports, or for whatever reason, I've decided I do not want to go through with this contract. You could even decide that maybe the house isn't big enough, or there's another house that came on the market that you like better and you'd rather take a chance on that, okay? By the way, you cannot make an offer on another house while you're under contract with this one. We would have to do a release for you to even make an offer on another house. So you're kind of like taking your chances on that. Okay, if you get out of one, you may not be able to get back into it. But the first one says you're accepting the property as inspected. The second one says that for whatever reason, you are backing out. Now, if that's the case, we do have to send them a release. According to this, they would sign it because we're within our 10 days due diligence. If we did any inspections, we are supposed to send them copies of those inspection reports, okay? Number 3 is the most popular one. It says, hey, I still want to buy this house, but only if you make XYZ repairs, okay? So we've got number 1, I'm taking it. Number 2, I'm not taking it. And number 3, I'll buy it if, okay? Now, the beauty of this, because we try and represent all parties, is the seller gets the same 3 options. So we send over to them a repair addendum along with the inspection report saying, these are the items we would like you to fix, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. And then they say, okay, they talk to their agent, what are my options? Their options are, I'll do them all, I'm not going to do any, or I'll do X and Y, but not Z. They have the same 3 options you do, okay? So this isn't a one-way highway where we're giving this to you and they have to do these items if they want to sell. We're not in that market anymore. We're in the market of, let's hope they'll do something and not want to go on to another offer. Okay, so according to this, we send them the repair addendum. They then have 5 business days to respond. Now, you have 10 business days. Even if we send in the repair addendum on day 7, they still have until day 15 because it's a total of 15 business days. Now, because we want to maybe move things along, if we do get the repairs done earlier and we send in the repair addendum, you're like, I'm not doing any more inspections, I'm done. We could tell them our due diligence is closed, your 5 days starts now. And that way they're not taking an extra, 8 business days. Right. So we can do that if we get to that point and we're good to go, okay? So they have 5 business days to respond, and that's what our negotiation period. All right, so really we want them to respond back within 3 or 4 so that if we are going to negotiate any, we have enough time to do that. Just remember, any negotiations opens up the contract to other terms being renegotiated. They may go, hey, I understand that you want these items, but we can't pay $3,000 closing costs and do these items. Which would you rather have? Okay, so when we send over a repair addendum, again, it opens up the contract for renegotiation. All terms are now on the table again. We'd like to think it's just the repair items, but it could be more. Okay, so if they do not respond to us, let's just say they ghost us, okay? We have 2 business days at the end of that 15 business days to decide whether we still want to move forward or not without any repairs being made. Okay, so they can't just ghost us and then hope that we'll walk away if they receive another offer they like better. We still have the opportunity to go through with the purchase, okay? If we can't agree on anything between the 2 parties, we can't agree on anything, then we could do a release and get your earnest money back, okay? So that's what that's saying. All right, we are doing FHA, so under this appraisal inspection, number D, what this is saying is that we have our inspection period. The appraiser is not under the same guideline. They don't have to go out within 10 business days. They're going out once the lender pushes the button to order the appraisal. Once they do that, they have a certain amount of time they have to get it in. They could go in 2 days, they could go in 10 days, 2 weeks, who knows. So this is saying that it's not under the same timeline as the rest of the inspections because we can't control when the appraiser goes out. We can control when the home inspector, heating, air, and termite guys go out. Okay. So based on that, if the appraisal comes back, if we've already negotiated everything, and the appraisal comes back after that negotiation, and they say, okay, you can get an FHA loan, but the rotten wood by the rear door jamb has to be replaced. These chairs are not comfortable. I don't know if you felt that too, but it's not comfortable. All right, so if they say, okay, there's some repairs that have to be done. Now, if they were on our repair addendum, we're good to go, right? Like, oh, hey, we already have some for that, woo! But if they are not, then we have to turn around and tell the seller, hey, the appraisal came in and it says that we have to repair this damaged wood. What is your response to that? Now, the seller could go, okay, well, good thing we haven't started repairs yet. We will put that in there, but we're going to take out something else. So again, we are reopening negotiations. They may say, we've already done the repairs on the repair addendum because this appraisal took so long that we are not willing to do any further repairs. We did all that we could do. If that were the case, okay, this says the buyer has the option of paying for and completing the repairs prior to closing or void the contract and get your earnest money back. Now, the problem is we have to get the seller to agree because they may say, I don't want the liability of someone else's repair person in the house. What if they get hurt? I still own the house. It's under my insurance. So we've got to hope that the seller's agreeable, okay? Or you give the money, like door jams, let's say that's $150. You may have to give them the money, say, hey, you can have your person fix it. Here's the money for it. Then that way they're not out of pocket. Because what happens if it falls through and they've now done all these repairs on your behalf that you requested, and now it's fallen through? So they're probably going to want a little reassurances that the repairs they're making aren't going to be for nothing. Okay. Usually I tell my sellers not to make any repairs until after we've gotten the appraisal in, but some listing agents may not do that. Okay. So that's kind of how this whole appraisal inspection part works. They're not under the same timeline, and they could come out with repairs that need to be made in order to get the loan. Okay. Any questions on that at home? Okay. We are not buying this property as is. Okay, we are not doing that, so we're just going to skip that section and go down to you initially at the bottom. Sorry, Scott Taylor's just walking by, so I was just waving at him. That's our OP, in case you guys didn't know that. I guess he's visiting town today. Okay, so page 5, condition of property. So this is saying that the seller has to keep up the property until closing. So even once we do inspections, if something were to break, like a window breaks, they would still need to fix it. Not, oh, hey, well, that wasn't on your list. Well, it's because it wasn't broken when we did our list. So things like that. Also, let's say they have a carpet down on top of something or a picture on the wall. If they go to move and then suddenly find a hole or damage, then they would be required to fix that according to this section. Okay, because it was hidden and we couldn't see it and our inspectors couldn't see it. Now, number 12, I did show you the property disclosure, so we'll do that. Now, on the property disclosure, again, this is something that the seller fills out. It has nothing to do with the agent. If we know of something, we have to disclose it. So if the agent knew of something outside of what was on that property disclosure, they would have needed to either call us or put it in the MLS under the agent remarks, something, so that we know that there's a defect that needed to be disclosed. Okay. So we'll do A. Now, lead-based paint, we did the lead-based paint form. Home warranty. I know that we're kind of already asking for some concessions. How strongly do you feel about needing a home warranty, or do you even know what one is?
Could you explain it?
Yes. Okay. So when you buy a home, you're getting your home insurance through Geico, right? That covers the major things like a lightning strike, a flood, these big ticket items that happen. Your hot water heater breaks and floods the house. Now you have to get all new flooring. Things like that happen. Okay. A home warranty starts the day of closing and goes for 1 year, and it covers the little things that could happen. like your air conditioner going out, or a small hole in the roof, or the stove or dishwasher breaking, and different appliances, just little random things that can happen. Okay. In that case, you would call the home warranty company. You would pay them a trip fee. Some of them call it deductible, and it could be anywhere from $50 to $125 for this trip fee, just depending on which one's chosen, which home warranty company's chosen. And then they're supposed to fix it as long as it's under their list of things that they'll fix. So even having a home warranty, I mean, it's good, especially if you don't have anyone around that can help with doing repairs or you don't know people. In this market, a lot of buyers aren't asking for them, but if you feel like that's something that you could really use, I do recommend them, just because, you know, a month after closing, if something breaks, you can't go, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Seller, you need to come back and fix that.
Right.
They're not going to come back after closing, they're done. Okay. So it is something that could help. But again, in this market, a lot of buyers aren't asking for it because they want their offer to be accepted. So it's kind of going to be on you on this one as to which way you want to go.
And
They
I
cost
got it
anywhere, okay, so if we ask the seller to pay for it, it's usually anywhere from $475 to $650. So that is, it's not like it's $100, okay? So it is a little bit of chunk of change. Now, you could decide that you want to pay for one on your own and get one, and then we don't need to put it on here. We could put it on here, you know, as the buyer paying. But again, this is usually what the seller's looking for. What do they have to pay? Anything. How do you feel about it?
I think we should get it. We're already asking to pay $3,000 towards closing costs. So I think I would have to pay for it. I should pay for it.
Okay, so it's a buyer will be
Yeah.
provided at closing, and then you want me to put for the buyer to pay for it. Okay. Now, the other option is that we just increase our price to cover it, and then that way, sort of a even Steven. Like, we haven't done the price yet, and that's why, because we're gonna go back and,
Okay, well, we can work it into the price.
so we'll put seller on this, and then we're gonna work it into the price, okay? And then what we can do is we could just put an amount that we're gonna go that or below, since we don't know which company you wanna pick yet, because there's like 5 or 6 out there. So it kind of depends on which one you feel comfortable with, and which covers the majority of the items. For example, like this one said, 30-year-old heating and air system. If it's working, it's not like we can ask them to replace the unit just because it's old. So for example, 210 home warranty, they have a really good heating and air policy, better so than many of the others. That including if this particular unit has Freon, they actually are going to keep Freon and have it to be able to fix units, whereas most other ones are going to say, no, we're not going to grandfather in old units,
Okay.
only new units. So 210 might be one that you would want to consider.
Yeah.
Do you want to do that
Sounds
one?
like a good idea, yeah.
Okay. I don't know how much they are costing right now. So I'm just going to put 525, know that we can, that's going to be your basic policy covered. If you want what I call the Mac Daddy, then that's where you increase your price. It lowers your trip fee. But guess what? If you never use it, then there's no trip fee. But it does also cover extra items. So like might have some main list and then extra things. So depending on where you want to be on that list, or you could decide after you look at it, okay, I'm going to pay the difference and get the Mac Daddy one and pay the extra $100, whatever.
Okay, so let's start off with the basic one.
All right, so we'll put, what we decide, 525?
Yes.
Okay, we'll put 525. That should cover the basic one, maybe even more. And we're going to put written up by the, I'm going to put buyer's agent, me, to write it up so we can make sure we're getting the one that we want. Okay. All right. So for property documentation, we've already seen the property disclosure and the foundation reports. Okay. This also recommends that you see if there's a survey, which when the attorney does their title check, so when Gillis Law Firm goes to the courthouse and does the title search, if there is a plat on file, they will pull that and give that to you for free. Okay. Now, if there isn't one, then your lender may say, oh, we need to have something. Okay. It may be that it's a subdivision plat, or it could be a plat of that lot, or it could be the plat with the house on it. You never know what you're going to get.
Okay.
Okay. So they will pull that, and they will also do the title search. Now, the appraiser coming over is going to do the square footage verification to make sure it's kind of in the realm. Now, 3 different appraisers could go over and have 3 different sizes. Usually they're going to be within 25 to 50 square feet of each other. But just because, so they have on the listing 1,601 square feet, you could get anywhere from 1,550 to 1,650 square feet from an appraiser. Okay, it is not an exact science as much as you would like it to be because it's human error and they've got this long measuring tape and who knows what they're doing, right? So just know that the appraisal is what's going to govern your price, and what the square footage on that is what they go with. Okay, so basically there's other documents that are going to be involved that I have nothing to do with supplying to you, so I can't guarantee any of those. All right. Okay. Now, according to this, there is no third party involved, so it's not a short sale, it's not a foreclosure, it's not a relocation. So we're going to put it's not subject to third party approval. According to the listing, it is on public water and public sewer, so we'll check those boxes. And according to the tax record, it is not in a flood zone. And then there is no, if you look on here, there's no HOA. So we're going to put there's no HOA and no special assessment. Okay, does that look good so far? Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3 spots for you to initial. Okay, now my understanding was that you do not have to sell a house in order to buy this one.
No,
Okay, good. We're going to check on number 16 with no's. Okay. Number 17 is about fixtures and personal property. So obviously we're hoping that they leave the light bulbs because they're supposed to leave the light bulbs and bathroom mirrors and, you know, mailbox, things like that. If there, I don't think there was a security system. No, don't think about security system. Okay, so everything that we saw since it's vacant is pretty much what's staying there. Okay. If there's any of those that you have a question about, let me know. Sometimes I have them read that paragraph just to make sure that they know what it's saying is supposed to stay.
it's the same all the appliances.
Any appliances that are normally staying. So in our area, refrigerators, washers, and dryers are considered personal property and don't remain unless we ask for them. But a stove, dishwasher, built-in microwave, those kind of things would stay if they're there at the property. Okay. Now, so for this one, because I couldn't get into the house, I have no idea if there's a refrigerator there. Did any of you see it in the MLS? Okay, we're going to pretend that there was no refrigerator and that we're getting nothing. Okay, so normally what we would do is write on here, well, we'll just do that anyway, we'll pretend that there's a refrigerator in the property. So we're going to write in here, refrigerator to remain at no cost / value to buyer. Okay, that way we're asking them to leave that for us. Okay, now the other thing that I like to write in here, you know how I told you that one paragraph 8 says the seller is supposed to leave the utilities on?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they call and have it turned off on the day of closing, and then when we go over there for final walkthrough, utilities aren't on, we can't test it. So I like to write in here to remind them that it's supposed to be on. Okay, so utilities to remain on for 1 business day after closing. That way you'll have enough time to go to the City of Columbia and get them to have it transferred into your name without it being shut off. Okay. Were there any other items at the house that you were concerned with? No. And by the way, you guys, I don't think you went to the house. I went over there, it's supposed to close Thursday. The grass hasn't been cut in I don't know how long. Paint is peeling off of the outside of the house. When they said as is, they actually really meant as is. And I'm just like, I'm glad I didn't get to see the inside, but the outside, Don't know what to say. So that's why we're pretending it's an average condition, because that was just too much to take in. Otherwise, we're writing in grass to be mowed prior to closing. No. All right. So under adjustments, we talked about the prorations being final. So if there were an HOA or rent, then those could be prorated. So really the only thing that's going to apply to you is the real estate taxes being prorated. And again, they're going to have the seller give you their portion based on their taxes from January 1st through closing. And then you're responsible for the rest of the year once the tax bill comes out. Okay. Now, fire or casualty, if the house were to burn down, we have 10 business days to let them know in writing that we don't want to buy it anymore. Okay.
Is this 10 days after closing? Or
No, 10 days from the time a fire happens. We have 10 days to let them know, hey, we're not buying anymore. That was it for me. Fire's done, not buying it. Okay, we're on page 7. Default. So we talked a little bit earlier about default when it came to do with earnest money. So if you or the seller were to default on the contract, which means not go through with something that's written in here that they're supposed to go through with, it could even mean that they're not doing the repairs that they agreed to do. I mean, there's different things that could happen. Then either party can say, okay, I want to be released from the contract because you defaulted, and I want you to give me the earnest money. Now, depending on the severity of the default, that party could also say, and I also want to be paid. So let's say that the seller's defaulting on you. Okay, best case scenario, right? Because you don't want to default on them and lose money. So best case scenario, they're defaulting on you. If that were to happen, and you're like, I've already paid for an appraisal, I paid for inspections, now I'm on the hook for paying for an attorney's title search, you could go, I not only want my $1,000 times three, $3,000, I also want $500 for an appraisal, $500 for inspections, and $250 for title search. You could say that you want to be reimbursed for the other items that they have caused you to lose out on because they have defaulted on selling you this house. Okay. So it's not always just earnest money, and that's what I want to impress upon you. Okay, and then if you have to hire an attorney to take them to court because they don't agree to that stuff, now we're adding those fees onto. All right, now if we have a release that's signed by all parties, then we're good to go. We don't have to go to court or anything like that, but it has to be agreed upon of the terms. Okay, so 22 mediation. So if there has been a dispute due to the contract, like breach of contract or anything to do with, all right, there it is, misrepresentation, negligence, fraud, things of that nature. Our company, since we're on both sides of it, we are members of the National Association of Realtors, which means that we would have to go to mediation if it were based on one of those things. Okay, so if it's not just a default in the contract, but actually something to do with one of the agents, we would need to go to mediation. Okay, this is the entire binding contract. That means we don't have any under the table deals going on. This is it. Okay, expiration of offer. Now, in this market, we don't like to give them a whole lot of time to get other offers in, because then we're going up against multiple offers. But we can't also just say, hey, you've got 1 hour to turn around and give us an answer. So now if we're signing this and you feel like you're going to be comfortable with us doing this, okay, let's say we have it to them by 3 o'clock, okay? If that were to be the case, what do you think would be a reasonable amount of time that you would want to hear back from the seller on from our offer?
Is 48 hours enough time or 2 business days?
That's too much time. We don't want the seller having too much time to respond back to our offer and then maybe get other offers in.
Okay.
So usually I would say less than 24 hours. So we would probably be looking at something like, you know, by 10 a.m., something like that, give them maybe overnight, or even, you know, 10 p.m. tonight. It's kind of like whatever you feel. We've got to give them enough time to look at, but not too much time to maybe take other offers.
Okay. 10 a.m. the next day.
Okay. So we're at 10 o'clock a.m. on 4/21. Okay. All right, going down here, definitions. You know, we've been talking about business days a lot. So business days start upon ratification. What that means is if we were to get this back in the morning ratified, our business days will actually start Thursday. It's the next business day, Thursday at 8 a.m. So from Thursday 8 a.m. until Friday 7:59 a.m. is one business day. You don't count weekends and holidays. So Friday at 8 a.m. goes to Monday at 7:59 a.m. That's one business day. Okay, so it kind of goes over the weekend. Same with a holiday. And so once all parties have agreed, and if there's any negotiations that go on, any changes have been initialed, then what would actually happen on page 8 is the last agent to receive the contract would actually ratify it. This box is what ratifies it and then starts that time clock for all of the business days. Okay. All right. On here, we've already talked about Megan's Law on the fire agency agreement. That's just saying that if you have any concerns about any sexual predators in the area, you would have to go online yourself to look them up. I can't look them up for you. Okay. I can't think of any other questions on that. So. Do you have any questions on that?
No.
Non-reliance. Okay, so this hat I'm wearing is a real estate agent. Okay, I'm not an inspector, not an attorney, I'm not a lender. Okay, so you're gonna have to rely on bigger, better explanations from those people for those items. Okay, if you, after me explain this to you, you want to take this to an attorney and ask them any further questions, you're allowed to. I'm not gonna say no. You can do that all day long. But this is a legally binding contract. Okay, and also, this acknowledges that you got that agency disclosure that I gave you when we first met that you signed, just saying that you did receive that. And then disclaimer, I can't tell you that this house is good for anything other than living in. Okay, I'm selling it to you as a residential property. If you try and turn it into an assisted living facility or childcare facility or do a haircutting business out of the home, I can't tell you whether that's allowed or not because I'm not on the zoning board. Okay. So things like that, I can't tell you. I can't tell you what it would rent for because I'm not a property manager. So if it comes for you using this house for anything other than living in, I can't advise you on how you could do that. Okay. All right. So other than that, I'm gonna put your name here. All right, now down here, I've got to put in all of the information for all of the agents. That way, because ideally when we send this offer over to the seller, to the listing agent, we want them to take it immediately, give it to the seller. We don't want them to have to stop and fill things in. So if I can fill in as much of this stuff as possible, then that's what I'm going to do. Okay. So really quickly, I'm going to put some of this in. Okay, we're going to pretend that I just filled all that in because I will do that as soon as we're done with this part of class. All right, so now we are going back because guess what we have left to do? The price. Okay, so on our little notes here, we are asking for $3,000 in closing costs and $525 for a home warranty and the refrigerator. Okay, now although the refrigerator isn't a monetary value, I would say that we should at least put a value in our minds of $500. Okay, because the refrigerator is a little bit older. It wasn't like it was new. Okay, we're just pretending right now. If it was like a stainless steel, I'd be putting $1,000 there. But because it's an older white one, that's all right. So that's going to put us at $4,025 as our concessions. Okay. Now they are asking for $120. Now, in today's market, giving them full price and then asking for concessions is actually going to be us giving them $115,975. I should have really rethought those numbers. Okay, so even though we're handing them $120, they're handing us back $4,025. So we aren't giving them full price. In other words, we're already discounting it. So depending on where you would like to go with this, you need to decide Do I want this house enough that I want it accepted right off the bat without having to negotiate back and forth? Or do I really like it, but if I didn't get it, that's okay. There'll be another house around the corner sometime the next year. Because that's maybe how long it takes to find another. So it may take a while, but hey, that's your choice. So this is the part where you have to tell me, how badly do you want this house?
Okay, I really want this house.
You really want this house? Okay. Many buyers, like we talked about, maybe pay their own closing costs. So if we even went up to 124, we're still only barely breaking even. I suggest that we go just a little bit over that. So if you want to go to like 125 some change, or even up to 130, there's like a whole gamut of prices you can go up to. We do have to hope that it's going to appraise. Okay. Based on the comps that I pulled, okay, this house was 1,600 square feet. So there's one there, 1,600, it was 138. There's one for 150. 150. I don't think this house, all right, remember, this is average condition, not as is. I don't think this house will have a problem appraising higher. So if you wanted to go higher, you definitely have the room in there. Even that's 137.9. I mean, you can see all these other ones that are definitely higher. That's this one right
So like around 130 wouldn't be bad.
here. No. In fact, if you have a favorite lucky number, I say just tag that onto the end so we might be that little bit more than somebody else.
Okay. 130, 600.
Okay, so $130,600 is going to be our offer. Okay, and we're going to be asking for those concessions. Home warranty, closing costs, refrigerator. Okay, so we're going to go through and just see if there was anything else we needed to fill in. I don't think there's anything else based off of 1,000. I always check it over one more time, make sure that we didn't miss any initials or dates or fill in any blanks. Okay. Especially page 5, it has a lot of moving parts in it. All right, so we just have left for you to sign it. I usually have them sign it after we've written in the price so that I know that they agree to the price. Okay. All right, so how are you feeling about your offer?
I'm pretty optimistic.
Okay, good. Okay. All right, for everyone at home, who has questions?
So forgive me for ignorance on the pricing. I just really want to make sure that I understand it. So you're wanting to make an offer that is higher than the listing price within reason of the comps, so that basically you could get your closing costs and stuff built in and they still feel good about the offer. Is that kind of how you were doing it? Because you were saying that it was listed for 120, but you got about 5,000 in concessions. So we're asking, our offer is over the listing price so that we can get everything we want.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and in this market, hardly any homes are going at or below list price.
That's what I thought I understood. Okay.
We can't price it high enough apparently for a buyer to not want to offer even more than what the list price is.
Okay.
And I've seen it on my own listings. People are getting crazy. I just had one that was $15,000 higher than the list price. Now they're asking some closing costs, but we're still like $12,000 higher than what list price would be. And the seller's finally like, okay, we'll take a gamble on it and see what happens. I mean, honestly, to me, for my sellers, I'm like, okay, if it doesn't come out at that price, but it comes out somewhere in between, then you're really not losing any money because you're still going to get over your list price that you actually wanted.
Okay.
But when he texted me last night, said, should we increase the price? I'm going, no, because Zillow says it's, $6,000 higher. I'm like, Zillow also has a disclaimer that they could be 10 to 15% off, and they didn't say anything more about it. But it's like, if we were to change it in the MLS to a higher price, I said, now agents are going to be asking, okay, what did the seller do to warrant increasing the price?
Right.
It can't just be, oh, the market's doing even better since we talked about it a month ago listing it. They're going to want to know, like, what has been done to this house to warrant a higher price,
Mhm.
because they're going to want to explain it to their buyers. So,
Thank you.
any other questions? Okay. Normally, what happens now is normally there would be people here and we would divide up into groups and you guys would do an offer together to submit as a competing offer. Okay. So we could do this one of two ways. Usually the people on Zoom would actually now start talking to each other and do their own contract together and then email it to me. What we could do, and I guess Jacqueline's gone, so we're down to 3 people, 2 at home and LaToya. So what we could do, we need to have multiple offers because Thursday's class is based on predication that there are multiple offers coming in and what is the seller, listing agent supposed to tell the seller. So we could have you guys just do one offer together and we could do it where LaToya is here and she's writing it up and then you guys are discussing how you want the terms to look, but it needs to be something other than FHA. So we just did an FHA contract. So I need a different contract that's either conventional, VA, or cash competing with this one. In fact, yeah, so either of those would work, whatever you guys decide. But that is what's supposed to happen this time in class is that you guys get, break into groups of 3s and 4s and write up a competing offer.
Okay.
So did you plan enough time for you guys to be able to do that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So what I'll do is I will give a clean contract to LaToya and she can be the person writing it up, but you 3 will discuss it on what you want your terms to be.
Okay.
Okay. You could also, sometimes the groups will take turns explaining different sections so that they're kind of practicing what you just heard. Because again, the other class I teach is the full class that explains what everything means in the contract. This is just how to take that information and explain it to a buyer. Because we don't want to spend 3 hours with the buyer explaining this one contract. We want to spend that hour or less explaining the contract and filling it out. So if you guys want to practice any of your scripts for any particular part of that, that would be a good idea as well. Or you can call me and set up a time if you want to do that together. Like, hey, can we go over this section again? I want to understand it better. So I have no problems doing that with anybody, ever. It's fine. I do it all the time. Not all the time, but whenever anyone asks me, I do it. So it's really not a problem. So does that feel good? Does that work for you? So what I'll do is I will give LaToya a contract. She will sit here and you guys will talk about how you want your competing offer to be. You need to make up a person's name. Don't do like Bugs Bunny or something like that. Make up an actual person. And then you'll just fake sign that person's name all over it. And then you'll give me the contract. I will come back in a little bit, see how things are going. Now, if you guys happen to finish, I'm right there in that office, so just come grab me. The other part of the class that I like to do is I like to pull up the MLS and kind of go through how I came up with these comps. But more importantly, if you guys look at these comps, okay, what I want you to look at is this section here. That's the headings, okay? The headings of that section. I set that up as a personal preference, what I want the headings to say, so that when I'm in front of a buyer or seller, I can actually say to them, and this is in the attachment, okay? Can you see that?
Yeah.
There we go. Okay, so I put things in there that don't normally just automatically pop up. I did the preference wizard on that. I added in sections. So you should have this in your handouts that you could look at. But so for example, I added in like the closing date, the closing cost paid by seller, how it was sold, the ask price versus the sale price, and this price per square footage. So I added all those in on the close because when I'm talking to a seller or buyer, I want them to see, how to compare to the other ones. A seller might need to know, okay, in this subdivision, the majority of them were X type of loan. Also, you'll see that the ones that I put in the handout, which I'll show you this for you. It looks like there were 18 closed sales. And, I can't remember if I went back 6 months or a year. Let me see. I went back a year. Okay, so in the last year, there were 18 that closed, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of those 18 had closing costs paid by the seller. So that makes her offer not seem so bad, does it?
Uh-huh.
Is that not something that be good to know when you're talking to a buyer or a seller? So if I were listing this house, I'd be going, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, just so you know, in this neighborhood, more often than, well, not more often than not, but at least 8 out of 18 times, the seller paid closing costs for the buyer. And a lot of those were FHA loans. You'll see conventional VA. This neighborhood actually has a mixture, whereas you'll see in a lot of certain price points, like once you get over 225, 250, you're going to see mostly conventional. Whereas under that price, you're going to see a lot of FHA and VA mixed in as well. So setting the seller up to know, okay, our average days on market is 29. So we should be able to get contracts and get this under contract in less than 30 days. Although if you're looking at the days on market on here, okay, you're going to see a lot of the ones in the last 6 months that were under contract within like a week. So this is definitely good information for you to take with you on listing appointments and when you're talking to your buyers to kind of show them what's normal. Okay. So what I was saying is that usually at the end of class, I will go over that. I'll pull up MLS and kind of show you how I did that. If you want, it's not required. It's sort of an add-on that I do. It's not required. And then I also pull up the pendings because I like for a buyer to see, oh, okay, look at this. We're now at 12 days on market for all the ones that are now under contract. That's how quickly they went under contract. So it's not like we have time to sit and wait to put an offer in for a week. We don't have that amount of time. It does kind of show you like the price per square foot and things like that. What's going on right now. So that, like I said, this is sort of an add-on to the end of the class. If you guys want me to show you, it's not required for you to stay for it. It's up
That's
to
a
you.
good experience.
Yeah. Well, I mean, having this category, that's why I included in the handout, because finding those categories is not easy. And so if I can show you easily how to like add those in, then that will help you with the other ones as well. Anyway, okay. You got your blank contract? Okay. I'm just going to finish filling this part in.
Our client is Elon Musk. Okay.
Is he paying cash?
No, he's still gonna have to finance it, I'm afraid. Things are a little tough.
Yeah.
You put 500 down.
500. He's a cheapskate. I'm just finishing filling in the agent information on page 8. Okay, and I'll do that back in my office. Okay, so here's your tax record. Here's your MLS sheet. I'm gonna leave this with you. You guys will, the 3 of you will talk. You'll work it out. I'll come check back in a little bit. And just let me know if you have any questions, okay?
Okay,
I'll be
perfect.
right
Thank
here.
you.
Okay.
A lot easier when she's sitting there.
I know, huh?
Have either of you filled out a contract yet at all?
No, I have not. No.
No.
I've done one and we didn't end up using it because we decided not to put in an offer. So as we went through this, I'm like, whew. Just because we hadn't figured in like the taxes, like
Oh,
just to help. I mean, he's kind of an experienced buyer, but still I didn't advise him as well on that. So I was like, Okay, this has been good to learn. So, okay.
This is a lot of information.
I know. Okay, so I guess we start in the point.
Go back to the contract quick, hold on. Okay, so entered into. All right, so contract of sales entered into today's date,
Mhm.
April 20th, between buyer, so whose name do we want to use?
Are you guys Carolina fans?
Oh,
No? Just trying to think of like a coach's name or something.
Well, why don't we do my first name and your last name? So it'll be
Okay.
like Leah Morse. That way we, you know,
Okay.
it's
love
like
it.
a mixture. Okay.
Yep. Okay. So it's Morse, like Morse code.
Yeah. And then the seller, you have that information, right, Latoya?
Yeah, and you find that on that
MLS, I think.
on the MLS thing. Yep.
Kathleen
It was Kathleen.
Pappas,
something. Yeah.
Pappas. Oh, Kathleen F. Pappas.
Okay.
Actually, on the property disclosure, she signed it as Lori. was trying to
I
find-
know. I was looking at that too.
Sometimes it's on the MLS thing where it has the information about. You'll have like all the buyer information. But there was the tax form that they had too. Yeah. Okay, so from the MLS tax suite. That was 20 editions, and it is
Lot.
Sweet.
yes, it looks like Lewis, or at least Louis, Loui Pappas, and then yes, Kathleen. Pappas.
And then Kathleen F. Pappas, yeah. Sorry, I'm like going back between each of the forms to try to
I know.
figure out where we're at, because of course my printer ran out of ink right as we started this. I printed a bunch of empty like nothing on them. I was like, awesome, great.
Yeah. And I didn't even know the MLS tax suite was in here. I was going to like the Richland County and Lexington County tax sites and stuff.
All right, so where are we at? Let me go back to the contract real quick. All right, so then initials, date, and then we're on 2, right? Property, and that's where we fill out. Hold on, let me go back. Here, no, wrong one. Here we go. 5810 Kenna Drive. Subdivision, Shandon West.
Yeah, Chaledon, CHALLEDON.
Where is residential square foot?
The TMS number is on that MLS sheet, on the agent sheet.
Yeah, it's the tax ID, right?
Yeah, tax ID 002723060111.
Oh, for the text, now that I've got for the TMS,
Oh, sorry.
that's okay. TMS. I've got that as 002-828-07-006.
County of Lexington, I think is what it just said.
Yeah.
Yeah, County of Lexington. And then we have to decide on a purchase price, right?
Yeah, and she said to go do that at the end of it.
At the end, right? Yeah. Once we go back. Earnest money,
Do we want to say that these people are, that we are more earnest in purchasing it? Maybe say the earnest money is 1,000 since hers was 500.
okay. Perfect. Earnest money to be held. Oh, so we have to decide on a escrow agent, which she did give 3 before.
Yeah.
There was Blair Cato, Gill's Law Firm, and then I think I missed the first one.
MCG.
Yeah, I have MCG written down too, but she did say a name of some sort too
Oh.
after that that I forgot to jot down.
Yeah, David Ross.
Oh, David Ross. So who do we want to go with? Should we try the Blair Cato because that's a different person than who?
Yeah, that works.
Yeah.
David.
And in line B before that, she did say to go ahead and make sure you put in there 2 business days after ratification,
Oh yeah.
or before 2 business days.
I'm live. Days before.
And that was $1,000 by check.
Yes.
Yes.
And then the buyer initials on the bottom.
Yeah.
Could you forward her signature, please?
Yes, please.
Okay, so then we go to the transaction costs.
Yes, trying. So number 5. Sorry, somebody just came in and was talking to me, so I just muted for a second.
So the costs include but are not limited to all closing costs, prepaid items like insurance, mortgage, lender, owner, title, flood, discount points, all costs to be obtained, which all of that, I know a lot of that, she said that that would be coming out of seller's transaction. We would be able to get some of that information, but she was kind of ballparking it a little bit.
Yeah, I think it was what, like $900 or something
Yeah.
is what she had down.
So we just kind of keep that off to the side. We're basically just explaining to them that, kind of thinking about how we want that to be. The transaction costs will be paid either.
Yeah, because she said you can talk to the lender and find out for the estimate for the insurance and then the tax bill. You would be able to let them know because we would have that in front of us.
Okay. So the A says the buyer will provide or pay for all the buyer's transaction costs. And seller will pay for all the seller's costs. B is seller will pay buyer's transaction costs not to exceed a certain amount. So I think that's where we're looking to see if we would ask them to pay.
For the
That's
closing,
right.
any closing costs at that point. Financing verification under this contract. Okay. So what do we want to do?
Do we want to ask them?
Yeah, do we want to ask for some closing costs? Because she was telling you like how much was she guesstimating as far as closing costs were concerned? Because she was talking about down payment and all of that.
Well, on an FHA loan, the down payment is typically less than on a conventional.
Right.
With a VA, you can do 0, like they'll let you do the whole entire thing with a VA loan.
Yeah.
So I guess we kind of,
3%, but that was for the FHA.
for FHA, yeah. I think conventional might be, I think it's 5, at least 5% maybe.
That's what I was thinking.
So do we want to go VA, conventional? What are we thinking?
I'm thinking, did we want to do conventional since the other one is a VA or is an FHA?
Yeah, let's do conventional then.
Um,
And then the purchase, well, the price was what? It's listed for 120, I think.
Yeah,
All right, so
120.
So if we're wanting to,
put down 5%, it'd be what, 6 grand?
okay,
So, and then you have to pay for your prepays.
yeah, and let's see, the typical tax rate is 4% for residential.
Yeah, and the millage is,
So 4% on.
so should we do partial or should we do, we'll pay for all the upfront? So that's where we're at, right? It's A and B on page 2.
Yeah, A and B. So maybe seller will pay buyer's transaction costs not to exceed.
Not to exceed, so we'll go with B then.
mm,
Yeah, I think so.
Okay,
Okay.
so it's, if we're assuming the closing costs are gonna be kind of from what we had talked about before, the closing costs could be what, $7,000 or, well, if we're, in fact, it could be a little more. Because,
Yeah.
because we're talking about putting more down, so if the closing costs are like more like 8,000, maybe we're asking for, I don't know, $4,000?
Like half of it.
Yeah,
All right, let's go with it.
It's their money. It's okay.
All right, and then we want to do is contingent because they're not paying cash.
Correct.
And then we decided on conventional, so that's that one there.
Mm-hmm.
And then buyer's agent will immediately notify seller. And then basically we're just explaining the 5 days. If the loan is rejected by initial lender, of subsequent lenders, buyer and seller agent must give written notice. All right, so then we're just initialing bottom of page 2. Because everyone's good with the application for financing and all of that, correct?
so for number 6, we did is contingent.
It is contingent on. the
Yes,
buyer.
it is contingent, yeah.
So should, let's see, and going down to B, just for me to understand, if the buyer failed to apply, that's right, if they fail to apply for the loan within 5 business days, they're in default and their earnest money can go to the seller. That's right.
Yes.
Um,
If buyer elects to make any material changes to the financial condition of the contract assumptions that negatively affects the ability. Oh, and then basically just explaining that they can't go and apply for a loan or buy furniture or nothing that goes on their credit until the loan is closed, obviously. Buyer gives permission. Sorry, we have people visiting, so if you can hear my background, I apologize.
That's all
The
right.
house is like a circus. Buyer gives permission to lender to disclose any allowable pertinent information. All right. So everybody understands the bottom part of it?
Yeah.
Okay. And then we are on page 3. Ouch.
Seller financing.
So we
not
don't have
this.
CRD, or we want CRD.
What's the matter?
I said, so we don't have to worry about CRD since the seller isn't financing.
Correct. Yeah, it's not a
Yes.
cash transaction. It's not seller financing. So we go to the appraisal contingency.
Yeah, so it is, the contract is contingent on the lot. Yeah, because we don't plan, we're already asking them to cover some of the closing costs, so obviously we don't have the money to be putting more forward if it doesn't appraise, so I would say is contingent. And then, do we have a property that needs to be paid off?
Yeah, we're good.
The seller's mortgage is being paid off, which that isn't relevant to us, I guess.
No.
So then the conveyance date of closing,
Conveyance will be made subject to the deed will be prepared in the name of our name, right? Yeah, so Leah Morse, or as otherwise stipulated by buyer.
and we can set it at really whatever we choose, 30, 45 days from.
From today. So do we want to do, she was saying if we do the end of May, it's less interest, correct? Because then you're not paying for all, yeah, so
That's
I
right.
would say that maybe we go with like May 28th,
Here you go.
the 27th,
You want
or, I mean, without
to
looking at.
like day, just in case some things need to be worked out. So
Right.
the 27th.
Okay, so let's do the 27th then.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Oh, yeah, because Friday is, yeah, the
We don't have
28th,
one in June.
yeah. Well, and then it's Memorial Day weekend, like she said before too, so. All right, so buyer, seller will be obligated to, yeah, and we want them to vacate and give possession of the property on the day of closing.
Correct. So we'll mark that an initial.
Yep. If a buyer has provided written loan commitment without additional condition.
Okay, so we're explaining B to them that if something-
Contract for a period not to exceed 5 days. Oh, yeah, so,
the parties agree to extend it for 5 days from the original closing date. Nobody has a cow about it.
yeah. And then the right of the buyer to have the inspection.
Yeah, reiterating to them.
Just explaining that whole thing for the purpose of the contract, the term inspector as defined as a person or company licensed or certified where required by law. Property sold subject to due diligence. So, and this property is as is, or she was saying that we should do it?
No, it is not as is.
Okay,
As you would go to paragraph 10 if it was sold as is. So yeah, we're having the property, and 8, we're saying the property is being inspected or
Inspected,
re-inspected.
yeah,
That makes
okay.
sense. The, as is.
All right. So we're initialing the bottom of 3 and going on to page 4, correct?
Yep. Well, the
Okay.
total- they-
I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. All right.
Exactly. Yeah, so we'll make sure that we've told in A, we've told the buyer that they have 10 days to get their due diligence and
For their inspection and everything, yeah. Due diligence period extension. Notwithstanding other provisions. And this is basically where she explained that she's a realtor and she's not an inspector. So if anything comes back, this is where, yeah. So inspection options, buyer will have the following options during the due diligence period. Property is inspected.
so your options are 1, buyer can accept the property as inspected, just saying, because basically she said they want it.
Yeah,
If you don't want it, if after the inspection, they're not happy, the buyer can terminate the contract.
yes. And then if they make, like, if the buyer requests seller to make repairs, replacements to the property, then it must be submitted complete copies of any inspection reports and the inspection repair addendum signed by the buyer, identifying specific defects buyer wants corrected to seller or seller's broker, prior reports and the addendum to the seller and the seller's broker prior to the expiration of the due diligence period. Which was 15 days, correct? She said, so after the 10, then they have an additional 5 business days.
Yeah, sure, it's
Okay.
about, the buyer and seller have 5 business days from expiration of due diligence to negotiate those defects,
Yeah,
be corrected.
all right. And then D wouldn't apply to us because we're doing conventional, I do believe, because that says FHI, VA appraisal inspections. If a buyer uses, yeah, so that's not going to even apply to us.
Intend is not, because we're not doing as is.
Nope.
So I guess we're good with,
So we're good with page 4. And then we're on condition of property. Hold on. Except for the property being sold as is, which it's not. Paragraph 10, after inspection and buyer after repairs or replacements, if any made as a result of any such inspections, seller agrees to maintain the property, including but not limited to the lawn, shrubbery, grounds, fixtures, equipment. This part made me chuckle a little bit, and then when she went over the rest of it, so we just purchased a house in January, and the like actual lawn and everything was absolutely awful. But we
Really?
didn't even care because we had waited long enough. We sold our house in December and we're living in the Hilton.
Oh my
So we
God.
didn't even care. I was like, I don't even care that it needs so like that it needed to be done. But and then they took half of the light bulbs. I was like, whatever. We'll get new light
Oh,
bulbs. But
no,
we
we
did the
didn't.
walkthrough, like half the light bulbs are missing. I was like, who does this?
Oh, wow. What worms?
But it was just funny. It made me chuckle when she was talking about that. I was like, yeah,
So technically you could go back on them, or could have gone back on them.
could have. Yeah, but at
Right.
that point, is it worth it? You know what I mean? We were like, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But you know what? There's probably a couple buyers out there who are like, no, you're gonna, I'm missing 7 bulbs. So yeah.
We were gonna change them with all new ones anyway, so it didn't even matter. Like the energy efficient ones. So we were like,
Oh, yeah.
whatever.
Okay.
All right, sorry, total tangent. All right, property condition, disclosure statement, and we have the disclosure. So
Basically, we're reminding the buyer that we showed you this and went over all this, before the process. even
Yeah.
began.
Right.
Or before we went to the contract, we went through the property conditions.
mhm,
Yeah, just,
initial. All right, and then we skip B because there was a property disclosure. 13, just talk about lead paint because the house was built before 1978.
Mhm.
That way they know that there could be some type of lead-based paint in the house
We gone over that with
in the
them.
disclosure as well, yeah.
Yeah.
Home warranty. Do we want one? Do we not want one?
I'd say we want one.
Chief actually usually recommends you get one, but
Okay, and I agree. I think with an older house, that makes sense. And when you were talking about like the HVAC
Being 30 years old, yeah, I say yeah.
So,
So we will, buyer will be
Be
provided
provided.
at closing. If applicable, the warranty premium will be paid by. So
should we say we're gonna pay for it since the other one said, like, I'm just curious if that makes any difference in.
yeah, we might as well. That way it's at least a little bit. I mean, obviously you're not gonna know what the other people are providing anyways.
Right.
But yeah, I think that way, so we can actually have a little bit of a difference there.
We paid by the buyer. Maybe we, at that point, I guess it doesn't matter what the price is. Somebody had told me when I was filling this out the other day that around like $650 was maybe a more upper, was a little more maxed out
Higher.
or something.
Okay.
And I think maybe we just put that 2-10 home warranty company that she mentioned.
Yeah.
That's
you
who.
said 650.
Yeah, we'll say 650. Paid for by the buyer in the amount of that. And then it will be written by the buyer's agent. We have to mark that.
Yep. Property documentation. Alright, so let's show. All right, and then, so this next part is about survey, correct? Yeah. And then because it's not in a flood zone, they're not recommending flood insurance. She said, so it was connected to well and, no,
No, it's public.
okay, it was public.
Yeah.
It's not a short sale
Nope.
community. Not in a flood zone. Not in an HOA.
The property is subject to a special assessment. Governing body including all that too. Oh no, so yeah, you said not an HOA. All right, so then we're done with page 5.
It was initial.
Can we initial number 15?
Yes, the initial.
Yes.
Yeah, because the buyer is acknowledging and the seller represents that the sale is not subject to that. The water and sewer setup, not flood zone, yeah, so basically A through E. The seller will confirm all of that we put in. I think it's initial right below 15 and then below E.
Buyer failure to disclose the existence. Contingency available. All right, so sale and closing contingency addendum. Is or is not attached to the part of the contract sale.
I would like her to explain contingencies a little bit more. I mean, I know.
You want me to go get her?
Oh, that's probably not a bad idea. Do you think it's a good idea instead of finishing? Like, that way we don't. I just want to make sure I understand, like, On the sale and closing contingency addendum, is it contingent on,
I think so, and I could be wrong, but I think that I think basically it means that if they had to sell their house in order to close on this house, that contract would also be attached in here as well. But yeah, maybe we do go get her, because I'm not 100% on that either.
yeah, because yeah, maybe that was in this part. I filled out a different, there's a state contract 310, and that was in a different place, so is the sale include, yeah, so is there an addendum that we would have to fill out? And like where it says other contingencies, because I kind of thought we addressed earlier that,
I know, well, and that's where I'm at too. I'm kind of like, wait.
because I know he's not, if it doesn't appraise.
Oh, okay, so additional contingencies. Contract and earnest money will be released to the seller. So I think
She's
it just,
talking with someone right now.
she's talking with somebody.
Does she realize it's a priority? Kid.
So A will be contingent on if the buyer sell their house before, I mean,
No, because we marked before that we didn't have a house to sell. So it would be is not, I think.
Okay,
yeah,
we did say that, didn't we?
And then fixtures, all right, so
Yeah, we'll go through the rest of it, but then we'll ask about the contingencies.
we'll go back. Yeah, just leave it. I would just leave it for now, and then we'll go back once she is able to come back in and maybe help us. All right, and then fixtures and personal property. She said that usually here she writes that the power should be left on until the next business day.
Mhm.
So that way they can check everything when they go in for their walkthrough. Oh, what did I just do? There we go. I need to go back to the
And somebody
contract.
had also said you ought to write in if there's a remote control or like garage door openers,
Oh, yeah.
people, might take those with.
really,
Yeah, isn't that ridiculous?
That is pretty ridiculous, but
Obnoxious, and to me, that's getting more expensive. So that's where I'd be like, yeah.
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 I mean, just right in to bring them to closing, I guess. So when we sold our house in New York, we brought them to closing with us. And then same thing, like they brought these ones to closing. They gave us the keys
Okay.
and the garage door openers and everything. So I would maybe just write in there that, like all like garage door openers will be brought to closing or something along those lines.
Well, we look like we're savvy. With that. What brought you to South Carolina?
My in-laws are here, and we've wanted to move south. It was like a 5-year plan, and COVID hit. It turned into like a 5-month plan. We just needed, we were over it. So we listed our house in December. We were already here. We came November and started looking to see like where we wanted to be. And then they're in Myrtle Beach. They're actually, I think, downstairs in my house right now, but they typically live in Myrtle Beach. And we knew we didn't really want to be there. So we checked out like Mount Pleasant and Charleston area, which was still a little bit busier than we wanted to be.
Yeah.
So we wound up coming over and checking out Lake Murray, and that's why we wound up buying over here. Our boat was on a freshwater lake in New York, so we kind of were looking for something along those lines.
Yeah. So did you end up in like Lexington or,
We're in Lexington, yes.
okay, that's where I live.
Oh, nice.
So we bought, last year we bought a lot, in Chapin. We're gonna build maybe in a couple years.
Oh, cool.
The property there, so. Lexington's a great little town, growing, very, 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 but.
We like it. I mean, we looked at a bunch of properties. We looked in Chapin, we looked here, we looked in Irmo.
Mhm.
And we found this house and fell in love with it. This was it.
That's awesome. Yeah. Good for you.
Yeah.
Lots of women.
What's up?
Yeah,
We were stuck a little bit on the contingencies.
And more just to maybe just plain understand what contingencies there could be that might come up, even if not relevant to this, but just,
Okay, so 16A means that the buyer has a house that they have to sell in order to buy this one.
Okay, and that's what I
It
thought
may
too.
not be on the market yet. Like it may not have been listed yet. It may be planned on being listed, but it's not under contract.
okay.
Okay.
16B is I have a house to sell in order to buy this one, but it's already under contract. At whatever stage it is, we have a ratified contract on it. Okay, so this is the difference. Under A, that offer can be bumped because it's not under contract.
Okay.
Their house is under contract ratified. It cannot be bumped by another offer. Okay, so ideally, if you're working with a buyer that has a house to sell, ideally you would want to go ahead and get their house listed. And then if an offer comes in, negotiate for a longer closing time. Say, because my seller still has to find a house to buy. That positions you to be in the best position as a buyer that you're buying a home and doing 16B where no other offer can bump you. If you do 16A, then you put it on the market and then it goes under contract. In the meantime, it could be bumped and you will have done all that work and then have to start over.
Okay.
Plus, you may have negotiated on that offer a shorter closing time, and now you don't have a house to buy, and you're gonna have to start over. And now they're gonna be worried about, do I have a house to live in for, you know, a week, a month in between? Because we told the buyers of our house that we close by a certain time, and now we don't have a house to move to.
Okay.
There are separate closing contingency addendums. So that's why you have checkboxes there. And those are in DocuSign. Under 16A, once they get an offer on their house, and negotiated inspection, the inspection, due diligence, negotiations, you are now only contingent on financing and you move into where you can't be bumped. But until that 15 days is up, you can be bumped. So it's preferable to have 16B where, oh, we've got it already under contract. The same rule doesn't apply because the buyer is already starting inspections now. Whereas under A, the buyer doesn't start inspections until the inspections on their own home is done by that buyer. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that definitely.
Due diligence is different. But if you look at the two addendums, you don't go from one, like you don't start with one sale and closing, then go to closing. Each addendum stands on its own.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm glad I asked, because that was not, wasn't sure about that.
Any other questions on the contract?
I don't think so.
And you shouldn't put power, you should put utilities, because water could be included, sewer, there's all types of gas.
Okay.
Just strike through that, and put utilities. Anything else? How far along are you guys? Are you kind of almost done?
Yeah.
We are. Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
We're on page
Let
6.
me go. I'm gonna have to ask Gabby real quick how to get into MLS with you guys on it, because I've never kind of done it that way before. So give me just a minute and while you finish up.
Okay, perfect.
So glad I asked. Had no clue.
Yeah, well, and that was, I mean, I guess I was kind of somewhat on the right page there, but I wasn't 100% either.
Yeah, because I didn't realize that there was anything about you could get bumped, like,
Yeah.
I guess. So, okay. So for our purposes, we do not have a house to sell. So like you said, right now
Is
um,
not,
is not attached and part of
No.
this contract of sale.
so neither one of them. And
So-
then we initial,
So we put is not on both of them?
Correct.
yeah, because we had decided that we didn't have another house to sell before we could purchase this one.
Okay.
And then we already did the other terms, so I think we're at what, 19 at adjustments,
Yeah,
which is taxes, homeowners, unless otherwise agreed in writing, the parties in this contracts, tax appropriation pursuant to this contract are to be based on the. Okay, so that's just basically explaining like the taxes, fire and casualty.
What they're gonna be. And yeah, then, so the taxes are paid for, they're responsible for. Basically, the seller will give the prorated taxes to the buyer at closing, and then they use that, then
Yes.
towards the end of the year, when they'll have to pay their taxes. Mix that money with theirs. Fire and casualty after the house. When
10 days after notice of such.
the house catches fire, fire is 10 days.
Yeah, so it's just saying if there's a fire or any casualty to the property, that you're able to terminate and get your earnest money back within 10 business days.
All right, so just, I guess, initial bottom of 6.
Yep.
see MLS up there?
And then this just talks about default. So basically, if the buyer or the seller fails to perform any of the terms of this contract, the other may elect to seek any remedy provided by law, including but not limited to attorney fees and actual costs.
Basically, to get what's damages and trouble.
Yeah, so just saying that they would be able to get the money back for appraiser fees, surveys, anything that was already paid, and just like attorney fees, anything like that. So everyone's on the same page with that.
Mhm.
So we're going to mediation. Any dispute or claim arises out of or relating to this contract, the breach of this contract, or the services provided in relation to this contract shall be submitted to mediation in accordance with the rules and procedures of the dispute resolution system of the National Association of Realtors. Disputes will include representation made by the buyer, seller, or any real estate broker or other persons or entities in connection with the sale, purchase, financing conditions, property to which this contract pertains, including without limitation, allegation of concealment, misrepresentation, negligence, or fraud. Any agreement signed by the parties pursuant to mediation conference will be binding, and then it just says the code shall not apply to this contract.
Basically, we're helping the standard of the realtors, the National Association of Realtors.
Okay,
Yeah.
can you guys see my screen? Can you
Yeah.
see my
Yes.
MLS screen?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Magic.
All right,
Are you
so
on the contract? We just need to come up with the expiration.
expiration date or time. So what do we want to say? Like, we'll give them till tomorrow morning, or do we want to do tonight?
Let's say 10 o'clock tonight. I think the other one was in the morning. So
Yeah.
push them a little bit.
Perfect.
You said 10 o'clock tonight?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, and then basically the rest is Time is of the essence, notice and delivery.
So even if it's faxed or emailed or whatever, that is still valid as far as a timestamp is concerned.
Yes. Survival. And then definition, single.
And so, yes, basically it's definition.
And then Megan's Law basically is just saying that if there is a sex offender in the area, it is up to us to look that up before everything. So we can initial at the bottom of 7 and then,
It's up to the, we don't do that. It's up to the,
it's up to the person who's purchasing, yes.
yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't saying us as real estate agents. That's my fault.
I
I
forgot. what-
should have.
Yeah. See, we all know we so smart.
And then we're just basically signing. Signing, printing, dating.
Yep, because the non-reliance clause just says, don't rely on me, I'm not an appraiser, I'm not an attorney and all of that.
Yeah,
And the disclaimer, if you try to use this property for anything except a residential, I can't advise you in that. And then, yeah, signatures, put in the, our name, Leah Morse, and then,
yeah,
and then the sellers' names.
yeah, and then buyer's agent, company, buyer's agent's email address. All right,
The
so I
LLC
think,
office code is 11999, isn't it, for Keller Williams, Columbia?
I don't know, but that's,
And all of this information will be on the.
That's on the MLS sheet.
You still have to come up with a purchase for it.
Okay.
That's
At
right.
the bottom of the MLS sheet, you have their name, their license number, their email, their phone number. The
Okay.
office code is, he's in our office, so it's 11999. Whoops, you grabbed the wrong one. You grabbed the wrong packet.
That's right, we had to do the
So it would be the same office code because he's in our office. Yes, wrong packet.
Okay, so the house is 120. And we were looking to put 4,000 down.
oh yeah, and split.
So like 4,000 in closing costs. Well, 4,000 in closing costs. Yeah,
So what do we want to write our offer as? Is that what we're deciding?
yeah. We weren't asking them to keep anything. I think she said typical closing costs were, like, what was it, 1,100-ish for taxes and insurance? It seems low. Okay, so we're saying $4,000 down. And we're wanting $4,000 in closing costs. We want the seller to cover those.
Yes. And it's listed at 120.
Yeah.
So what do we want to do for a price? Like
You want
125?
then that puts them,
Okay.
it basically gets them 121, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or have not, this is the part I'm not as good at. Is that the only other? You know, right now, I guess, to be sure in this market, like, is that? Is basically, it's, you know, do you really want it or are you okay to lose it? So like,
Right.
we had, on the other one, she said 120 for the house. We asked for 5,000 in concessions, so we're like, we're asking for 4,000 in concessions. But we are putting $4,000 down. How does that impact us as far as setting like an offering price? Like that's more for our financial picture, right?
Mm.
More than, but that does impact the amount that we have available to us. Like, okay, like if we're saying we're willing to give up to $8,000. So basically what she was coming up with was a house was 120, we're asking 5,000 in concessions, so we made an offer of 130,600. Because basically that netted them like, what, 124 for, no, 124.
Yeah, so it brought it up.
Yeah. So do we for sure want 124? So if we say like 128, that gets them 124. I mean, again, we don't know what the other people's position is typically.
Right.
Yeah, so you want to go forth with your like best and solid.
Whatever you're comfortable with paying. I think 128 will be good. Did we say
Alright.
128?
Yeah, let's do 128.
And sure, love continued schools of thought on that.
Hmm?
I would love additional schools of thought on that. You know, as far as making that decision, like when she said, okay, they'll offer, 120 for the house, 5,000 in concessions, so we'll ask 130,600. What is that? How did she come up with that? Was that just?
She was looking at the comps she ran, and most of the houses sold for between what is it?
That's right.
They sold between 130 and 150.
Okay. She was kind of going like 137 or.
Yeah. Some had 147, 165.
That's right.
Yeah, cash, conventional.
Yeah, the conventional sold for like at least 143.
I know, yeah, 143, 149, 119.
150 and 157.
Yep. 147, 157. So maybe we do go in higher, because and if you look at it saying how much was paid to is like one's 4,500, one's $3,000, one, and then 42. Those are the ones that are under the conventional as well.
Yeah.
Does it say where, like asking, oh yeah, okay, so asking and then purchase price.
Yeah, she wants less, but that makes sense.
125, 143.
We
How
can
big
go-
was the house?
Hmm.
The square foot of the house? 1,600?
Yeah, which is like higher.
But it definitely looks like on the conventional loans. Prices
150.
didn't vary too far.
No, not from what the asking price was.
Uh-uh.
I mean, there's a little bit under, there's one that's over. Well, no, there's a few that are over.
Those FHAs are really, really flat too.
Yeah. All right, so I guess basically we just need to decide
All
a
right.
purchase price.
And looking at all that, I mean, I guess I'm kind of still thinking 128, but
I know, but and then you look at that and you're like, okay, I think that made me even more confused than it was before.
right. Because then she went a lot more over. And looking at these comps, they're all pretty,
Close to listing in the area, yeah.
And we're asking for them to pay 4,000 down.
Yeah, I think that's what we wrote in there was 4 grand. All right, so do we want to go with 128? Do we think that's a solid?
yeah, and then we'll kind of see what her thinking is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, for under number 1, I think I missed the box. It says buyer acknowledges receipt of disclosure of brokerage relationship. And I'm supposed to check client, right?
Yes,
Yes.
because if we get to this point in filling out a contract for them and they're not a client, we got bigger problems.
Oh, yeah, like far, far bigger.
Okay, I'm gonna go run and get her.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, you know, we didn't add, well, we're paying our own home warranty though.
Yeah.
So that's not in the. And we're not asking for the fridge.
That's crazy to me that a fridge isn't included.
Right. I don't think I really realized that typically what'd you say, the fridge and,
She say fridge and washer and dryer? No, fridge and TVs, I think. So I had a showing yesterday and like they were leaving all the TVs, like the TVs conveyed, the all the appliances conveyed.
Okay, now don't laugh. I'm gonna back y'all up because I have to be able to see the friggin' TV in here to be able to do this. So we're moving the table too.
Okay.
Otherwise, I won't see. I'll move the chair. Okay. So, looking at my screen, did you guys pull up the comps from the chat? Did you pull that up?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, all right, because that will help. Okay, so
Let me minimize this screen.
you
and go
can do
back.
a search in here. Sorry. You can do a search in here, the quick and dirty way over here on the left, or through the search up here. Okay. I'm gonna do it the quick and dirty way for this one. So I go down to subdivision and start typing. And we've got a few Chaladons. We've got Chaladon West and just regular Chaladon. Because they were kind of built around the same time, for this class, I'm going to be honest, in my mind, I was not remembering that this was up behind Irmo High School. I was thinking that this was in Chaladon off of Piney Grove. So that was my mistake. But so that you can see what I brought up, I'm going to put both subdivisions in because they were all built kind of around the same time. It's just the one behind Irmo High School is considered, like, they usually have a little bit bigger houses than regular Chaladon. Like regular Chaladon has a lot of 1.5 baths, whereas Chaladon West has more 2-bath.
Okay.
But so just so that we have enough to look at. Status, I usually go in, whether I'm working the buyer or seller, I will put all active, all pending, and all closed. And then I added in this closing date right there. I don't know, are you guys on MLS as well while we're doing this? Or are you just watching mine?
Just watching.
I'm
it.
just watching yours because
Okay.
I have the comps on the one like side of my screen and then your screen on the other.
Okay, so if you look up here, you have this little widget right here in the quick search, and that is where you can customize what you just saw. So I added in over here a couple of quick things that I like to look up. So I don't know what you have on your screen since I customized mine, but I added in closing date so that when I put all closed, I can put the date range. It's not automatically on there unless you add closing date. So you would go over here, click on closing date, and then add, and it would pop up over there, and I moved it up to where I wanted it to be. But I'm going to show you how to do that with the other part. This is just customizing. They only allow you on this one up to 15 items.
Okay.
So if you want master on the main level, add that in, but you may have a buyer that wants something else that's specific. You might take it out and add the other item in. So you'll have one or two that will just, you can switch in and out. Like most of you will not need to care who the selling agent is or the listing agent when you're pulling this stuff up. Okay, so you can exchange out some of these items on the left over to the right at some point if you want to. Okay,
Yeah.
that's just that little widget right there that allows you to customize the quick search.
Okay.
Okay, and one other thing, like my last quick search over here, you can see, you can go back and find your last ones if you want to pull up one that you just did yesterday or something, if you did a couple without having to try and figure out, you know, everything you did.
Okay.
So active, pending, closed, I did 12 months back, just because that's what I had on the original sheet. Because I'm just trying to find the comps, I'm not putting anything in here about area. I already put the subdivision, so it's going to pull up the right one. And then there's 41, I hit search. And what I actually did for the ones that I pulled up for you guys, I took out the 1.5 baths because I knew this was 2 baths and I knew that they would not comp the same. So to me, it's easier to see in green. So I always click that box. I don't know why, it just seems easier. So I went to baths combo and I took out all the ones that weren't at least 2 baths.
Okay.
So that's how I narrowed my list here.
Okay.
It's not something you're always going to do, but because I had so many, I was like, well, I'll just get rid of the 1.5 baths because I don't need them. I've got enough of the other ones. Okay. Then I clicked on check so that only the ones that were left checked would show up. Then what I do is I click on status so that I can like divide them up. So we've got active, we've got all the closed, and then pending. So I kind of look at that, and then I don't know how to do that. All right. So over here, we've got the ones that we want to use. I will then sometimes cross-reference and go over here to, let's see. All right, so next go over to reports. Now, my reports are gonna look just a little different because I have a couple saved under my favorites. I have agent full, customer one page, CMA summary, and market conditions addendum. So what you do is you go down and find the item down here under like the details. This is where your agent full and customer one page, and just click and drag it up to put it in your favorites. Okay.
Detail.
And that's how you can get to some of these, but these are the ones that I'm going to go over under my favorites. So again, CMA summary, market conditions addendum, they may be under market conditions, I think is under this one, under specialty views. But again, since mine's already under favorites, I don't know what it's going to be under on your screen.
Okay.
So if you're in it, go ahead and look and see if you see it. See how I have to keep getting closer and closer so I can see the screen. See if I can make it bigger. No. Well, now we can't see. All right. So what I sent you is the actual CMA summary. So if we do the CMA summary, it's going to pull up how you saw it on there, except I went in and did a few more further adjustments. Okay, except it's not popping up. Okay, let's try it again. There we go. Okay. So you see how you have these extra columns there? One other thing I did was I looked over here at the price per square foot, and there were a couple in here that were so low that they had to be like foreclosures. Remember how I said we're going to do this one as regular, average condition? So I actually took out some of these really low ball ones. I looked them up first, and I just made sure that they were, not regular comps. But I just took out a couple of the really low ones because they wouldn't have been used in a normal situation. And then I go up here again and click on checked, and then those two will come out. Okay. So we'll just, let's see. That's close to what I had. I may have taken out a couple of the super high ones if you ever see anything like new construction and then you've got a house that's like 40, 50 years old, you're going to take out the new construction. So there may have been one or two in here that I took out as well. But anyway, so what I really wanted to show you was how I got to this stuff right here. Okay. So on this page, you can go up here to customize, just like that widget on the first page, and go to customize fields. Okay. And when you do that, this is where you need to pay close attention. This is the active status, which on the active status, I don't care as much. It's more for the closed status that I want to make sure that I've got the right column headings. Okay, so I just clicked right here on status on the closed section so that I could pull up my column headings. Some of them, they will not let you change. Okay, so I added in a few. Now, when you click on short label, it's so that when you pull up the columns, you don't have this long, column heading. So that's just the short column heading. So I usually use that, So I added in combination the baths. So you know how many baths there were, the closing date, closing cost paid by seller, how sold means was it FHA, VA, conventional, and then the list price, because I want to be able to show sellers, hey, this is what they were listing at, and this is what they sold for. All of them sold higher than they were actually listed, or, along those lines, if that's the right conversation. So if you look at the one I gave you, some of the first ones, let's see. Most of them sold at or above asking price. There's a couple in here that didn't. Some just sold for $100 more. When you get into the 175 and up category, you're going to see a huge uptick on this, where almost none of them sell for less. I think it's because some of these are in rough condition in this neighborhood because they're older. So as you can see, there's a couple that sold less, like 444 Pitney Road, 209 really in that subdivision. I know it's a larger square footage, but 200 and up for that subdivision is not normal. So you can see that it ended up going for 196. It was a VA loan. It probably didn't appraise high enough.
Okay.
Okay. But, I mean, if you really want to do some comparisons here, if you look at the ones that sold for less and go, okay, all right, so 307 Chalanon Court was listed at 143.9. It sold at 140. Okay. That was conventional. So that was a little unusual, but I'm betting you anything, if you look that one up, it was probably an as-is sale also, because it was only $63 a square foot. So I'm betting you something was wrong with it. This is like red flags time, okay? Then look down. See if there's any in here that strike another red flag.
So would that be one that you would decide to pull out?
I would look at that one specifically. I'd pull that one up and I would see, does it look like it's as is? And if I'm doing average condition, with average condition means, there might be some marks on the wall, but it might just be some cosmetic things. Okay. Not like big ticket items. Kenna Drive that we did today were big ticket items. Those were foundation problems, etc. So it wasn't a good one to use, but I didn't have many vacant ones near the office available. So I went with what I had. Yeah, what's funny is that several of the ones that didn't go over asking, like sold for less than what the list price was, were conventional, which normally conventional is the easiest one to get the sale price for. So I'm actually kind of surprised at some of these numbers, to be honest. If you see the first one, Seton Road, asking 153, it went for 158. That was a VA loan.
VA, yeah.
Yeah, usually those don't go higher, but
So did they list that, did the seller's agent list that too low?
do they include sellers what?
Did the listing agent, did they price that really too low?
Well, if you look at it, it says 131 a square foot. That's a lot higher than any other one. So there must have been something else going on with that one. That would be one that I would probably consider taking out because it might be an anomaly. I will usually, if I have a spread of comps, like let's say 10 or more, I will look at the lowest and the highest and find out why are they so different if they're so different. It could be that one has a pool. If it has a pool, I'm taking it out.
Yeah.
So I always look at the ones that are the outliers, like why is this one so high or why is it so low? And then I will take those out. There's no sense in keeping those in when you've got an average or decent condition home. My house doesn't have a pool and that one has a pool, but I have enough other comps. I'm not going to use that one,
Yeah, that totally makes sense. That's the newest one on there too.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So, when I'm explaining to a seller, I'm looking at this, and really this is kind of the seller's contract class now, but I'm looking at, the closing costs paid by seller, so I can tell them, okay, quite a few of the houses did pay closing costs. It was a mix of how they were sold, so we can't hope for a conventional offer. Typically those are considered better offers because usually there's fewer restrictions from the appraiser and the lender. And it usually means the buyer has a good credit score and that they've got a decent amount of money to put down. So when you see a conventional offer and then you see an FHA or VA offer, if everything was identical, a seller would probably take a conventional offer over the other two. Better chance of it going through. But then you'll get sellers who put sentiment in the way. They may go, well, I was in the military, so I'd like for my house to go to someone who's also been in the military. So if there's a VA offer, I'll take that one if it's equal to the other ones. So you'll never know what a seller's going to throw in as their little caveat as to why they accept one offer over another.
Yeah.
Okay, so then you've got your average days on market. And again, I might go to this one that was 111 days on market on 133 Piney Grove and go, why was that one on the market so long? It could be that it was under contract several times and kept falling through. Or it could be that it needed a lot of work and that's why it's in a lower price range compared to the others. So that might be another one that you might want to consider throwing out that would not be typical for a listing if you're talking to a seller. And then I do the sales price per heated square foot. Typically, appraisers do not appraise based on price per square foot. Usually they do sales comparison approach, but I put that in there at least if I'm talking to a seller on trying to get a sort of pocket, like, okay, it looks like, $97 a square foot is sort of the average. So how does our house stack up to that average? If it's better than average, then we'll say, okay, the highest amount was 131. So that means somewhere between 97 and 131 is where we're going to list at. I just try and at least get them to look and see, okay, here are the listings, and I'll email them the listings. Once we're under agency, I'll email them the listings and say, these are the ones that we're going up against. How similar is our house to them? Find the couple that are most similar, and that's the price that most likely we're going to be listing and getting. See what I'm saying? You got to look at the pictures online and then let the sellers make that judgment, because on paper, they're going, oh, my house is worth $125, $130 a square foot. Okay, let's have you look at those listings that are in that higher range. How does yours compare? Let them visually see that their house is not stacking up. Okay.
Well, and if those are completely remodeled and theirs needs a ton of work, I mean, that's like the difference there too.
It's obvious to us, but sometimes we have to let them come to that realization. Okay. So again, before I show this to a seller, I'm going through and taking out these outliers and ones that have nothing to do with our house. Now, if there's only like say 6 comps or less, then I'm kind of stuck. And what I do is I'll have the 6 on a piece of paper and I'll make notes next to it. Okay, this one had granite, meaning yours doesn't. This one has granite. Okay, this one had new paint and carpet. Okay, this one have, and I'll list the differences that could make a difference in the price so that I can show them, okay, so it looks like we're kind of in between these 2 or 3 here. And so a good price might be right in this pocket. Also, what I'm doing is I'm looking at the pending. That's on the next page. And I'm going, okay, the houses that were just on the market. It's on page 2 of the comps I sent you. Okay. Of the pending ones, it looks like these are all within the last 60 days normally, 30 to 60 days at most that are still pending. Okay, average days on market was 12. Okay, the market has sped up a little bit in the last few months. That means there's lower inventory and they're going under contract a lot quicker. So we really have to make sure that we are ready to list. We don't want to put it on the market if it's not ready, because we're going to have buyers coming through almost immediately. And then the current prices, that sort of thing. So I just kind of show them where we're at. What is our competition with the active? What's closed that might be comps that an appraiser's using, and then what was just recently listed that went under contract, so we can kind of gauge our time frame. So if we're on the market for a week and we haven't gotten any offers, then that might be time to make a price adjustment already, because average days are 12. Okay. Yeah. So in fact, only one was at 44. All the rest were under 14. So that's a good way to go. Okay, at what point do we need to start making adjustments to the price, especially if you feel that the sellers are listing above what you're recommending? So if you're recommending 150 and they're like, no, I want to list at 162.5. You're like, shoot, that's going to be really hard to get. Then you may want to say, okay, well, if we do that, then we need to have a review at day 7, day 10, whatever it is that you want to establish. And if we have a lot of people coming through, but no offers, or offers that aren't near this price, we might need to make a price adjustment. Get them to understand that we may have to adjust something along the way if we're not getting the right offers or any offers at all. If you're getting no offers in this market, then something is wrong. It's either the
Yeah.
condition of the home or the price. Something's wrong. Or it could be the, well, location, but you can't help location. So it is where it is at this point. Okay. What questions do you guys maybe have on this? Again, make sure that you're under this closed section when you're adding these things that you can add them in under active. It's just a few of those columns won't fill in because there's no house sold yet. There's no closing cost paid yet, because it's not done yet. Those don't fill until after it's closed out and the agent closes it in MLS. But the real thing is that closing costs paid by seller and house sold, those to me are two really good ones to add in to show your seller what's going on in the market in that subdivision.
Yeah.
Now, the next form I want to show you, if you don't have any questions on that one, and again, you can see all my statuses right here, or my columns, okay? The other report is market conditions addendum. This one, if you know how to talk about it, it can be very beneficial as well for both buyers and sellers. If that page didn't do it, which that page should do it for you showing a buyer, okay, more than half of these paid at or above list price to get the house, okay? Other subdivisions, almost all of them are going to be above, but we're going to go here to market conditions for addendum report. We're going to hit generate report, okay? Those comps that we had chosen are going to come up with this form right here. Now, I did not include this in the handout because I wasn't thinking about it at the time. But on this one, okay, remember how I put just 1 year? I could go back and put 2 years and then everything will generate, okay, all the way down to here. This is a good market snapshot for people who say, well, I bought my house 2 years ago. Okay, well, let's see what the market's been doing since then. You can see the time frames up until getting sooner and sooner as to right now, current 3 months. All right, 3 have closed in the last 3 months. Prior to that, 4 closed in that 3 months, and 10, 7 to 12 months ago. So you can kind of see inventories getting lower, okay? Right here, except for the last 3 months, the sellers were getting their list price or above. They were getting 100% of what they were asking. Suddenly we have a little dip, and I have a feeling it's because of those couple that were maybe as is, okay? But this is something to show to a buyer to say, hey, your offer, if we're here, then saying your offer of less than asking price may not be accepted because the sellers right now, the last 6 months, are used to getting 100% of their list price, if not more. Now, right now though, hey, LaToya, we offered more because you really wanted this house. A few of the sellers are not getting 100%. This is not typical though. Okay, this is not a typical subdivision right here, right now. So if I were you, I wouldn't be showing them this report, okay? I would be showing them the other report that shows what types of financing there was. I would take out those other outliers so that it's not throwing me off. And then that way we'll get a good market snapshot, okay? But this can come in handy when you're with the seller and they're saying, well, are they offering more? Well, 3 to 6, 7 to 12 months ago, they were offering a little bit more. 3 to 6 months ago, they were right at list price, averaged out right as the sale price versus list price. That's why I had those 2 columns on my form, because that's where those, can go to. So this one can be good if you use it right. And if you fill out the whole thing. Let's go back and we'll see what happens. Okay, go back to our home and let's go down here to 24 months. And I'm also going to put, I don't know if it will work, but let's put 2 there. I have a feeling that that's not the right heading that I wanted, but because I don't want 1 and 1.5 baths showing up. So we'll see if it worked. And there's a buyer represented sale. You know what that means, right? That means there's a FSBO.
Oh,
Okay, so we've got more reports. I want to go to this one first because I want to take out those couple that had the really low price per square foot. I think it was that one. You see the other one in there anywhere? No, there was two.
Ooh, like almost the end,
That
44 Baymore Lane or something. Yeah, 207, I think.
There's the 85.
Is it Valcour?
Yes.
Okay, and then what was the other one?
Number 32. Is that right?
Is it 60? Or
Yeah, there's 32, 60, 64.
85.
and again, this isn't foolproof, but we're just going to take a few of these out if we can. This is why I said it's so hard when the screen's not right in front of me. Okay, is it 39 maybe? All right. Let's just say that this is enough, okay? And we'll just do check because I want to have enough in there that goes back, and those could have been further back. So we're going to go over here to the market conditions addendum. Okay, so now you see how this is now populated? So we can now see that kind of 97 to 100% for this neighborhood has kind of been the average.
Yeah.
I say we took one or two out there that shows that recently is now 99%. I must have taken one out that was a low one. So this becomes a little more usable in showing a seller or a buyer, hey, they're used to getting kind of what they're asking for. They're not used to low ball offers. Low ball offers were 2 years ago. But since then, since 22 months ago, they are used to getting pretty much what they're asking. And sometimes you're going to get those buyers, they might be young, might be first time home buyers that are relying on other people that have bought and sold in the last 30, 40 years that haven't bought or sold anything in the last 2 years going, oh, well, no, you should be able to get a deal. You should offer less. You should never offer full price. These people are living in the past, not the past 2 years. Okay. So this kind of form can quickly show those doubters that, okay, well, in the last 2 years, this is what's going on in this neighborhood, this specific subdivision. Okay. And then that way it kind of maybe will back them off to going, oh, okay, well, wow. And it used to be 97%. You could get a seller to come off like up to 3%. It's crazy, and still pay closing costs. But that is not the market we're in today. So sellers are going, no. So here we are. So what do you think? And then here's a little bit of explanation down here as well as to what these different things can mean. Okay.
So now I don't know if this is a stupid question. Somebody had posted on the Keller Facebook page the other day about them, he having like a buyer that did an as-is house and then was asking for the HVAC because I guess the HVAC was old or something. He had mentioned something about it being in the disclosure and he was kind of asking for advice on that. When I had read it, I didn't like, obviously I have no idea, so I wasn't about to give any type of advice. But my thought with it was basically either they have the 10-day so they could back out, or they bought it as is. So basically it's on them, right? Or is that not how that works?
Well, like on this one, it said on the property disclosure that this unit is about 30 years old.
Yeah.
So we already know it's an old unit, but their notes were, but it's working great. So depending on if they're saying as is, then yes, if we had done 10A, that would be as is, but we still want due diligence. We still want to do inspections. And then if you have an HVAC guy come out that says, okay, it is 30 years, it is running great. There's no reason for the seller to expect to replace a unit if it's working well. And your inspector even says it's working well.
Yeah.
It may be old, but maybe they've serviced it every 6 months for the last 30 years. Who knows, right?
Okay.
On the other hand, they could come out and say, hey, it's working today. Don't know if it'll be working in another week or two or a year or two. It's just the way it goes. Then the buyer's got to make a choice. Okay, I'm either going forward, hopefully maybe ask for a home warranty to cover it breaking, because that's
Yeah.
usually what, we'll say is, well, get a home warranty. I think that was that one. They said, we'll get a 2-year home warranty. Those are like $700-800 or whatever. But yeah, they could ask for that. By the time the seller pays for a 2-year home warranty, it's almost like the same amount as having service visits and everything else, I guess. But the sellers aren't, especially in this market, they're not going to replace something that isn't broken. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. They're not going to do it.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of, it always comes down to setting up your expectations. So if you're a buyer, if you're setting up the right expectation, you're saying, look, this is the deal. It's about 30 years old. They say it's working. If we do a heating and air inspection and it says it's working, the sellers aren't going to pay for a new one. So if you're expecting a new one out of this and it's as is, then we need to go look at a different house.
Okay.
So it's all about setting up the expectations with your buyer as to what they want. And usually when you're showing the house, you can kind of look at a unit and go, oh, wow, that's old. Or, hey, that's pretty new, you
Yeah.
can usually see it.
Thank you.
Oh, no problem. Any other questions you guys can think of? So Thursday's class at 1 will be taught by Brandon Hoffman, and he will take our offers and he will then take the contract and show you what he presents to the seller. I showed you what I present to the buyer. He's going to show you what he presents to the seller, how to do a seller's net sheet, how to compare them, how to come to, a rational decision, that sort of thing. So that class is a good follow-up, if you say, well, I only really work with buyers. Well, don't you want to know how a seller thinks? Like your offer that you're putting together, how do they receive that so that maybe it will help you to do a better offer? Knowing what sellers look at. Also, at Tuesday on our team meeting day, we will have a broker panel that starts at 12:30 after the team meeting, and it's going to have agents, and we're going to talk about multiple offers and how to make the best out of a multiple offer situation. Okay, so that is Tuesday at 12:30 after the team meeting.
Should help.
So tomorrow I have from 2 to 4, I have Ignite with KT.
This is Thursday.
Or that's what I meant. No, that's what I meant. Sorry, Thursday. Would it be beneficial for me to even get on there for an hour and then hop off and do my other class? Okay.
Yeah,
Alright.
just stay for as long as you can. And then go to your other class. Yeah.
All right. Thursday. at 1. All right, perfect.
Any other questions you can, let me look over your guys' offer, see if there's anything weird on it. And then that way we can submit it. Okay, you forgot to initial next to financing, so you need to do that. Okay. You do not, 15C about flood, whether flood is required or not, whether it's in a flood zone. Okay. And then on this page, you need to put the buyer's agent, you, which one of you is gonna be considered the buyer's agent, and your license number there. I guess that's you, because that's your email. And then you need to put Keller Williams Columbia there.
Okay.
And then his license number, which was on the MLS sheet. Okay. And then that'll finish up your offer. So that will be what I give over to Brandon.
Okay.
Other than that, if you have other MLS questions you want me to try and help with, I can. I'm not like an expert at it, but I know how to get what I need out of it, if that makes sense.
I just had my MLS class on Friday, I think.
And that,
Friday? Yeah,
that goes very, very fast, and
it does.
it's like when they said like there's the 102 or something, and I actually had a buyer or had a showing at the time, so I want to get in and see that second one, because yeah, he kind of zips through everything really quick in an MLS class.
I think it's Thursday, the 22nd. They sent me an email. If you want to give me your email address, I can shoot that over to you, because I have other stuff training
Okay,
at the time.
well, Brandon has done some MLS videos. He's done like 3 of them, I think, like how to do the setup wizard and some other things like that.
Oh, I know.
So, why don't you send him a quick, send him a quick email. Do this, send me an email, and then I will forward it to him for him to send back to you the links to his videos, okay?
Okay.
Because I didn't bring my phone in this time, so I don't know, I can't remember what his email is. My email is Tracy, TRACY, .KW Realty @gmail.com. Or text me, whatever's easier, and then I'll give you my phone number too. It's 803-606-6699.
Okay.
And just shoot me something, and then I'll send back to you his info so that you can get the videos from him. Because if you have like a little tutorial, that sometimes helps, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah, because I've been pretty sloppy and trying to piece, comp reports together and things like that, where it's like I'm sort of doing it, and then one day it's like, oh, I think I just created actually a listing, and it's like, no, stop,
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so I haven't got my card.
Mhm.
I don't know my license number.
Okay, we can look it up. Do you
I
guys
put it in an email, but
have your pocket cards? Like, do you know what your pocket card license number is?
I
I
know.
have my license number, but I don't have a pocket card because my license just came in last week, I think.
Okay. All right. Well, just decide now that you're going to memorize your number, because you're going to need it on a lot of different things,
I
especially
have,
if you're writing
yeah.
up offers. So just plan to memorize it to be on the safe side.
Okay.
Mine's pretty easy, thank God.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mine's not easy, but it is what it is.
Okay. All right.
Our office code is easy, 11999. That's
I
easy.
know, I like that.
Yeah, that is easy.
Then that's our LLR office code, okay? The difference is if you ever do a listing and it asks for your office code on the listing docs, that is an MLS form. So they want the office MLS ID, which is KELL01.
Okay,
So anything that you see in the MLS with KELL01 is our office.
okay.
Okay, that's an MLS ID.
Okay.
I have people that put the wrong ones on the listing agreement all the time. They'll put the LLR code. It's like, no, that's the MLS code. So depending on which form you're on, just decide, okay, is this an MLS form or is this an LLR or state NAR type form? Then you'll know which one to put.
Okay, that's good to know.
Okay. Any other questions you can think of?
I think so.
So far, so good.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate you guys attending class today, and I hope that you'll be here for Brandon. He says that, well, only half the people who come to your class come to his, so he gets depressed about that. So hopefully some people will come to his class.
I'll be there for an hour, for sure.
Okay. All right. Well, just tell him ahead of time, hey, I'm going to have to leave early because I have the Ignite training or whatever, so he'll understand.
Perfect. All right. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you guys for coming.
I think just look that up on the LLR website.
Okay. I guess that is it. I don't know how to get out of this, to be honest. Oh, there we go. All right, let's see. Nope. Okay. All right, just leave so I don't feel bad.